Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Sorry about the delayed start. I was having hardware problems. I thought I had everything up and running, and my world was all messed up. Yes. Sorry, Izzy. I assume you are floating in the chat. I cannot wait. Sorry. I cannot wait for my new hardware to show up. It cannot show up soon enough. This is getting very old, having these kinds of problems to deal with. So it is shipped. It is on the way, and hopefully will be here soon. So, for anybody following along from last week, the Automocker stuff release went out, plugged it into a project, found a couple API things that didn't quite sit right with me, pushed out another preview update to the 4.0 stuff in the last 24 hours. It'll probably be close. If anybody wants to test it and let me know if you have any problems, let me know. The big change is it comes with all of the new HTTP client stuff and the fix for Application Insights 3x. Merry Christmas, Izzy. Yeah, sorry, delayed start, the stupid hardware again. So I'm very annoyed. Very, very annoyed. But in theory, yeah. Yeah, new hardware is coming. It's supposed to, well, I don't know, 7 to 10 business days from 4 days ago, in theory. So I'm hoping I see it before. Well, I guess that could be for me as late as like March 5th, so, or March 6th. I guess the problem is we kind of had a holiday on Monday, and I don't know if that counts as a holiday for the people getting the hardware for me. It's like, I don't know, maybe. I don't. Regardless, next week or two we should have it. Quick update though, for next week, no stream on the 26th. I will unfortunately be on an airplane during my normal streaming time, so it's very difficult to stream from on an airplane. So next month, by the time the extra spyware gets added, yeah, well, don't worry. Step one is going to be like I intentionally plan on just wiping the sucker and cleaning it as soon as I get it, because it doesn't have like Windows Pro. I am absolutely going to grab that and add it and just wipe the machine and start over. So, I mean, I'm gonna fire it up, run the benchmarks, make sure everything's good, and then I'll promptly wipe it, just to get everything in a nice, clean, happy state, and then start down the lovely process of running my winget scripts to reinstall all the things and figure out which of my scripts are out of date. So that'll be fun. It'll get everything up and going. For tonight, my plan is to look at a .NET Aspire application. You didn't pay the extra for a flight with Wi-Fi, power sockets, and a bed? No. The nice part is the flight's fairly short. I think it's like an hour 10. Like, it's one of those that you're kind of just up and down, but it's also late at night, so it's gonna be real obnoxious. So, but it was either that or I had to be away from my family an extra day, and decided not to do that. So yeah, it'll be good. But tonight we're going to take a look at an Aspire application. I have my .NET templates repo. I've shown it off a number of times on this stream, specifically like my WPF one, which if anybody's looking for a way of getting started with WPF, I love my templates that kind of just show like the way I like to build apps. So they are, unlike the built-in ones from Microsoft, mine are opinionated. They're opinionated in how I think I like to build my apps. And so they work great for the target audience, which is me. And occasionally other people use them too, which is great. But again, it's targeted at what my opinions are and how I think things should be structured and built. But I have recently, I've got several projects that I want to work on where I noticed I was starting to do the same things in a lot of cases. They were web-based applications. They were using .NET Aspire. I needed infrastructure to stand them up, and I did the first one in the portal manually, and I'm like, I should really terraform this. There was all this stuff, and then as soon as I got to the second one, I'm like, screw it. I'm gonna stop working on all these projects, and I'm gonna go back and build myself a .NET template with all of the things that I want in it. So this is a template that is gonna have it's gonna have the whole bloody kitchen sink in it. So let's dive in and we'll take a look. So, okay. So this is a .NET Aspire based application, and let me just, I got to make sure. So with Aspire, one of the big things that it does is it provides you local development orchestration for all of your dependencies. Because even in a small app, you usually have a database, you usually have a back end, there's probably some sort of front end. Like even yesterday, I was working on an Avalonia app where I've got a SQL database, an ASP.NET back end, and an Avalonia app on the front end. And I still used Aspire just because it orchestrated the database and all of that extra stuff for me. And I'm like, well, shoot, I kind of like that. So let me launch it, and I will show this off to people who want to see it, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the pieces that are here, and then we'll go deal with my problems. I think I know what I need to do. I think I'm missing an environment variable. I think. So, but we'll get to that in a moment. But I'll give people a quick tour of Aspire, and then as we're waiting for pipelines to run, we'll dive into more details on it. Let's see, where'd it go? Oh, of course, it launched in the wrong thing. Okay, so this is one of the big things you get with Aspire is a local dashboard with all of your stuff, right? The app host project that I have here, that's my startup project. That one defines all of these resources, the relationship between them, and you can see that things are going to start up, start running. You'll note it's got this front end where it's going to do the npm install if it needs to, runs the development server for my front end. I've got a database on the back end. I've got my actual ASP.NET Core back end down here. And if you note, everything's called React App. The only reason it's named that way is because I have intentionally, this is a repo I am using as a means of testing my template. Because part of my template is like GitHub Actions and all of the extra jazz. This repo is built around just being able to test all of those components. Ultimately, this is going to end up back in my, let's see, if I open up this, back in my .NET templates repository. If people want to see kind of where it's at, there is a React branch, but this branch is a little behind where my other repository is at, just because this repository is where I'm doing work, and then I'm literally just going to squash all my changes and copy and paste back into my template. Because at least over on the other app, I can kind of test everything. Like the only way to really test a GitHub action is to run the GitHub action, and so I can't do that inside my templates repo. I need a real repo to run this against, and I'm already out of date on Aspire stuff. See, I got to update so many things. We'll get a lesson on that here in a minute too. So, but I've got all of this. If we launch the app, it immediately 404s, and that's always a great sign. Let me bet that this thing is not listening on the right. What? Oh, that's the back end. Where's the front end? Usually that's why. Okay, hold on. You got to not be an idiot. This is 404ing because that is the back end. This is the front end. There we go. Oh boy. So the whole premise of this entire app is a very simple QA room. Month or two ago, we did a conference at work where I showed off a Blazor version of this. The app was less important. It was more around showing .NET Aspire. Let's see, my room, right? We could go through. It'll try to join. It shouldn't find it. Ooh, that pops up twice. That seems wrong. But we can create an account. I don't think I've made one. I think this is a clean database. So test@email.com. I think it's actually going to enforce a strong password. So 1 second here, because I don't trust it not to pop up something that I don't want it to show. We're just going to. There we go. Okay. No, don't save it. Okay, so we can come in here. We can create a new room. Kevin's room, right? And the premise of a room is just a place where people could go in, ask questions. We can get the public URL for this guy, which is just this one. And so if we open this in a private browser, we'll put that on the side. We'll put this over here so we can kind of see the things here. This will be Bob. Why is your name Kevin? Right, so we can submit a question. And then inside of the room here, if we go back to the manage side of the fence, right? We can see that there are pending questions that have to be approved, so things don't just automatically pop up. They can be deleted or otherwise, just so that things go through. When you see an upcoming question, right, you can hit set as current, and everybody then sees what the current question being asked. You can clear the current. You can mark it as answered, right, and it goes through. So just kind of your basic Q&A type flow. Like, this is the whole app. It's not big, it's not complicated, but there's enough there to make it interesting, right? It leverages SignalR for a lot of the back and forth stuff. It just works, right? That's the basic premise that we have here. So very simple application. Now, I have a pipeline for it. Let's see if you want GitHub. Let's see, and actions, and we deployed this out, and let me grab I do have a portal. So portal here, let's see, what are you doing? There we go. Portal here, and we can see I'm failing on my deployment, and if I go in and look at the logs, let's see, I think it'll let me... they may have killed them off given how long it's been. I think I can still get to the old ones via one of these. Or we could actually probably just start one up. I think the problem... So the issue that I am seeing is I am running into an issue where it is failing to find the relevant managed identity. Because inside of this whole ugly thing, right, if I open up VS Code... Close. I have gone even as far as to create an entire infrastructure in Terraform because infrastructure is code. Now, Aspire does have what they call local, what is it? Local deployment, local developer orchestration, something of that nature, where they do tie into, there's an Aspire CLI and also the Azure Developer CLI where you could do like AZD up. And the idea is it stands up a set of your infrastructure into Azure that it basically as a way for a developer to easily get going with the infrastructure, because some things there's just not local equivalents for, right? A lot of Azure resources, you've got emulators and things you can run locally, but sometimes you actually just have to deploy something into the cloud because you need something that's out there, right? AI Foundry. There's no, like, you can run Foundry local, but if you're wanting to test with some of the bigger models, you just can't. Right? Those are things that just won't work. Well, I'm going to phrase. Unless you have a seriously beefy machine better than mine, which is not that hard right now because mine keeps crashing, you do need like extra juice. And so that's fine, but that is not really a pipelinable deployment strategy in a lot of cases. And so I'm like, that's not really what I want. Like, I actually want infrastructure that when I run my template, I have infrastructure that I can use to go through and deploy this app out. There's a 42U server rack count. You're making me jealous, Izzy. I'm just trying to keep one desktop up and running, and people are server racks. So for people who haven't used Terraform before, it's a desired state configuration, meaning you write down what you want your infrastructure to look like in HCL. This is what these Terraform files are written in. It's very simplistic. Like, if you can read JSON, granted it's probably 20 years old, yeah, but it probably has more juice than my desktop. But this is just a way of going through and deploying it out. Now, you'll note I have intentionally put a random pet resource in here. The whole point here is that there are things in Azure that must be globally unique. When you stand up something with a URL, like a storage account, you cannot pick a name for your storage account that anyone else in the world has already taken. That's just it. So random pet is literally here just as a way of disambiguating, so that if two people run my template, they don't get the exact same named resources. And in reality, you should probably do something different. I think I'm going to end up doing, like right here, I'm using random pet environment ID. I'm probably going to do something more like environment here, and then pull the random pet in with a to-do up in the locals, so that there's just one place with all of the spot where people want to deploy. Again, pick location is needed. I'm going into West US 2 because I'm on the West Coast US, and frankly, these templates are opinionated for me, right? But I'll leave it to do where it's like, it's somebody might want to pick something different depending on where you're located, right? This is probably not everybody's default Azure location. So I thought about leaving them blank and just forcing people to type them in every time, but I'm like, that's work. So for now, they're all going to be hard-coded to my preferences, and people can change them as needed. I may promote them into individual variables or similar. Okay. Buried in all of this, we have a container app, which is how we are deploying this stuff out. And then more importantly, we've got these container app environment variables. And I believe the problem that is going on is if I look at so I only have a prod environment set up because I didn't want to set up two. No point in duplicating the infrastructure. If somebody wants to duplicate it, it's a simple copy and paste. I believe what I need to set on here is my Azure client ID as an environment variable. And I was trying to, before this started, I was going to go look at, because a lot of this infrastructure is somewhat based upon what I have done with Velopack. Make this bigger. And how that is configured. And so I believe if I look here, what I am missing is this guy right here. I believe that is what I am missing. So I think what I need to do to make this sucker work, we'll come down here. I think I'm just going to do it here. Let's see. And that's going to need to be the way to go, Copilot. Let's see. CD, infra, Terraform. Let's see. I believe it's FME recursive. Because Terraform likes to format stuff with the equal signs all lined up. I'm way too lazy to do that, so we just auto-format there. I think that gets me around the problem I was facing. Because right now my backend is failing to start, claiming it can't find the managed identity to use to access the database. No database, no worky. Backend, no fire up. So I'm hoping it's just that. Because I think, again, I've been chasing down all kinds of fun bugs and exciting stuff to try to do this. So, okay. So, while that is deploying, because it's going to take itself just a quick minute while it kicks off, because it should go and deploy the infrastructure, and then I'll just need to run my build and deploy to kick off the other side. We could manually kick it in the portal, but I kind of want the pipeline to trigger it just to test it. So for an Aspire-based application, if you have an existing app where you are like, oh, Aspire looks cool, it'd be really sweet, but I've already been working on this project for years. How could I use Aspire? Well, the good news is it's actually not that hard to get started. Right click, add. And it may hide it from me. It's actually probably because I'm debugging. There should be underneath the add Aspire orchestration. Yeah, Aspire orchestrator support. Right? And this will go through and it will give you an Aspire app host, and you'll get this service defaults project as well. This service defaults is basically a set of configuration. This gets generated once. It's your code once it's generated with what Aspire deems as sensible defaults for being able to start up a cloud-based application, right? Things like we're going to enable service discovery. We're going to enable health checks. We're going to enable HTTP clients with resiliency and all of this kind of usual stuff that you would expect, right? All of that kind of things that you might want all plugged in together. And so this is yours. You can add more to it. You can take some away from it. You can delete it. You can move it around. It's up to you. But this is just a starting point, because this add service defaults is then a very key component that gets added into your backend app, where it then starts adding it in. Now, my personal bias is I often go through and create my own set of extension methods that add in the individual components that I care about. Because in I hate to use the word microservice, that term comes overloaded, but in a distributed style application, the people's gut reaction is, oh, I'll just have the one place where I register all the things. Well, the thing is, most of your apps don't need all the things, right? Even the simple concept of, well, adding in the database. Of course, all of my microservices are going to need the database. It's like, Well, do they? Because some of them might be, say, responding to a service bus queue, doing some processing, and then pushing that out somewhere else. There may legitimately be like Azure Functions or things that may not need the database. So even separating out that type of work into its own extension method so that I don't have to deal with it is kind of in my opinion, a good way of dealing with it. Now, this is a complete hack for running migrations on startup. Again, not recommended for production scenarios. This works really well for a quick and dirty stand-up. I may even go as far as to kill it off for my infrastructure at some point because I want to get an EF migration bundle plugged into the pipeline because that's my preferred way of doing this. So some of this may disappear, but for now, this is a quick and dirty way of running EF migrations. But just breaking apart apps logically by vertical might not be the right word, but vertical of where all of these things go tends to be my preferred way of setting this up. That way, as apps need database, they can go, oh, okay, I'll add the database, because you want fast startup times on all of these things. You don't want especially as a container app that can scale to 0, you want your startup times to be reasonably quick. So there's no point in making your life hard and suffering. Let's see. When you do that migration, bundle, stream it, please. Well, we may get to it tonight, Izzy. If I can get this thing running, it is one of the first things on my list that I want to add. And I've got a handful of examples that I'm going to be pulling from. They're just in private repositories, but the good news is one of the private repositories is mine. So it's not plagiarism if you steal from yourself. Okay, so that deployed that out. Great. So let's come over here and we are going to kick off my build and deploy. Run workflow. Because there's like right now, I'm just trying to get this thing with all the pieces working together. There's cleanup and kind of some refactoring stuff that I want to add to it a little bit later as well, just because it's not quite exactly what I want. But right now, make it work, make it right, make it fast. We are on the make it work stage. But this is make it work in a variety of situations, right? Like this guy down here, this stage is actually reaching into my Terraform state file to be able to pull relevant connections that it needs. I don't know if that's actually the way I want to do it, or if I want it to be like AZ queries. It's weird, right? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to decide how much stuff I want to put in if this was like a full-blown prod thingy, but the moment you go like enterprise grade stuff, that adds a lot of extra overhead. And I'm like, I don't know if I really like. I'm gonna have to draw a line in the sand on where I stop and say, you know what, you're gonna have to figure this out. Like my create Terraform backend PowerShell script here, I kind of need to consider exactly how much of this I want to do and keep, because it'll go through, it'll stand up and I probably should rename it. It's more like infrastructure bootstrap script. Maybe that would be a better name for it. Let's rename that while I'm thinking about it. Great infra, because there's a number of things that you need to do before you can even run Terraform, right? You need a storage account to hold your state file. Otherwise, your state file is local and that's just garbage, right? It won't work on a pipeline. So it'll go through, it'll spin up a resource group for your Terraform state file. It'll create a storage account for you. It'll go through, so there's all the storage account bits. It will go through and it will create an app registration. And it will actually go through and create 2 app registrations. One that is designed to be the infrastructure app registration that the infra pipeline runs with, and one that's the application level app registration that the app pipeline runs with. Because the infrastructure pipeline one generally needs almost God mode level permissions, right? Some people will have company policies around how much these pipelines can manage. like my infrastructure, it wants to be able to query your AD groups. It wants to be able to put things into AD groups. It wants to be able to spin all of the infrastructure. It needs at minimum contributor over the subscription because it wants to spin up all the resource groups. And some people are going to go, whoa, 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 I can't do that. But it's like trying to figure out where those lines need to be drawn. I'm like, you know what? I left a switch to where you don't have to set it for all of them, but this is me trying to figure out where's the right line between get it up and get it running quick and easy for people and understanding that some people are going to have limitations where it just won't work for them. Would you not use something like Vault and then use that to create a set of configs? Then you just need the root path of that to grab everything in one call. Sort of. Like there is a Key Vault portion of this. I assume you're referring to Key Vault, not like Terraform Vault. It's a chicken and the egg problem a little bit in that this repository is meant to be created by running .NET new kaboo.aspire. Like that's the starting point of this. And so if you run that on a brand new app and then you go through and need to get up and running with infrastructure, you need something to kind of bootstrap that. That's another thing on my list is I need a README that actually covers a lot of these setup steps. Because after .NET New, if you want the infrastructure level stuff, you're going to need the Azure CLI already installed. You're going to need to be logged in to an account appropriately. A JSON config file. Yeah, and like I've got this like local TF vars here, right? And on my template, my intent is to leave a sample TF vars that's like, hey, these are the things you need to configure. But as long as you have an Azure CLI and logged into it, assuming that most people running this are like running on a, you know, maybe a free tier Azure or cheap tier Azure with like MSDN credits, and they just want to stand something up and get it working, that's kind of my target for what this would go against, right? Not quite an enterprise grade level setup, more around, hey, let me show you how to get this going, because I can't build this to like in the last year, I think I've worked with 3 different enterprises and they all had different levels and different ways that they like to structure this stuff. There's no way to know, right? Like, so this is, I think I'm best off targeting kind of that indie individual developer. It's not a big deal. Your account that you're going to run the AZ login against is going to have high levels of permissions to be able to do a lot of this stuff and to be able to run. And then this then kicks it off and gets it running. So it's like, that's kind of my target, I think, of what I'm going to go for. Because again, that's for me, when I'm building like my personal apps, that's basically what I'm looking at, right? I've got, because I'm a Microsoft MVP, I've got an MSDN subscription, I've got some Azure credits, right? If I stand up one of these apps, I want to be able to get it up and running quickly and have all of the secrets put in place and all of that kind of configured and ready to go without me needing to do a ton of work. So that's kind of my thinking is I want to be able to, you know, pop one of these things up, stand it up and be up and running. And I don't know, under 20 minutes would be ideal, I think. Okay, so this guy's going to go, it's deploying. Yay. You'll note this thing is a little slow, and it's partially slow because it actually goes through and like runs full UI tests with Playwright and the whole bit. So it's a, you know, it's 90 seconds and like I actually have, you know, 70 tests over this stupid little app. Like it's a very small app, but like there's actual tests. Yeah, at some point I need to rebuild a few of my old websites and try again with Azure. Had it years back and the cost spiraled because I was used by a classic VM. Yeah, VMs can be quite expensive, and that's part of why I like the setup I have here is once I get this up, I kind of want to just like let it sit for a week and then just measure the cost of it sitting idle at a week. And then hopefully when I actually spin a couple of my private projects with it, I'll have some numbers I can put on there of, hey, you know what? My little personal app that has, you know, 10 users on it that hit it, you know, I don't know, a few dozen times a month. Classic VM even. Yeah, those can be expensive because you're paying for the storage, the compute, the whole 9 yards, the pip. But like with a container app, it scales to 0. It's fairly cheap. The database SKU that I've picked on here is cheap tier. It is, so for people watching, there is free. I'm gonna show this. There is a free tier Azure. There is a free tier Azure, Azure SQL. Where is it? Read the story, get started, blah, blah, blah. No, pricing. Let's see. Is it here? The problem with the free tier pricing, it's not vCore. Is it going to show it in here? It may not. So one, you can go with a basic tiered one, and it's less than $5 a month for 2 gigs of storage, low tier DTUs. But there is a free tier pricing one. The disadvantage of the free tier one is you can't script it. You have to go into the portal and intentionally pick it. I could not find a way to script it all the way through. So I think that's intentional. Because Microsoft's target audience for the, let's look at here. Microsoft's target audience for an Azure free tier is people who are just like wanting to try stuff and get started. Their rationale is if you are actually going to the effort of like scripting and infrastructure as code, you are probably well beyond what it is. Let's see. Azure SQL Database, this guy here. So if I may leave directions for people if they want to go through and do this. Yeah, so there's your the service tier, and that thing's gonna lock out and load. But there is a free tier Azure SQL that you can run with 100,000 vCore seconds of SQL database, serverless usage, 32 gigs of storage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Again, I believe you can't script it. Let's see. I had it on a 5K charity pack of the year. I was maxing out for that simple website. Dang. Yeah, and if anybody is running something that's like a nonprofit or similar, Azure does have nonprofit stuff that people can sign up for. I don't remember the exact numbers of what they offer, but there is nonprofit stuff. You just got to send them in the paperwork with relevant bits. And then I believe they always stand you a new subscription. I don't think they add it to an existing one. We've done it now twice at work with various nonprofits we've worked with. So, but you do get some number of Azure bucks that you can then go through and spend, which is basically intended to try to get people up. Like Azure runs on like the drug dealer pricing model, right? They want to have a good free tier so you get hooked and then put the rest of your money into it. Yeah. Just make sure you don't forget to renew each year. Yeah. There are definitely gotchas. Like they are in the business of trying, like I said, they want you hooked as much as possible because there is a little bit of vendor lock-in there that they are aiming for. Okay, so if I go here, I should see my environment variable. Let's see, 12 is a new one. Environment variables. I now see my client ID. Great. Revisions and replicas. It's working. I think the green check is what we were going for. Okay, let's go back and actually launch my legit front end. That's my container app. So static web app is what's hosting the front end. Let's see. Let's register. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go. Okay, registered. Okay, so I'm in. If anybody else wants to play along at home. Let's see. The magically generated URL is that big ugly thing, right? But we can create a room and call it stream create, right? And we can go in and manage it. And then if we grab the public room, right? So there's that. And then I'll back out to where we can manage it. And then see if I open up a new a new thingy here in a private tab, and I will be Bob. Sounds like a great name. Why is the best language C#? Right? Because obviously that feels like a good one. Submit question. Oh, it works. It works. I'm so happy. Sorry, that I do that set of operations. Like in theory, I should have known this once the room created, okay? But I know that basically works the whole system. Going all like if I can go from here to here, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I love it. I love it. I love it. Clear current. At some point, I probably need a way to nuke the rooms as well, but it's up and working. Okay. Okay, so let's commit what we got here. That's just a rename. Okay, so now I would like to go through and steal some work for doing the database migrations. So let me go and grab that work. And I'm going to, again, it's not stealing if you steal from yourself. At least that's what I've been told. So that's who we're going to go steal from. So, okay, so handful of things that we need. Handful of things that we need. Let's see. Minimize that. Don't care about you. I don't care about you. Okay, so up here. Oh, this doesn't have. I should add into my solution the GitHub folder. And then I should add in existing item. So I would like to get it so that it actually has everything in here. So, oh, I guess I need to add workflows. I forgot about that. Add new solution folder, workflows. I am looking forward to Solution X, hopefully one day being more MS Buildy, where I can glob pattern my way to victory rather than having to add each of these, because I'd like to add both of those in. There we go. Okay, so couple things we need here. And yes, I am aware that some of these actions are out of date. I am acutely aware. We're going to add Dependabot as well to all this stuff. Because again, my goal is to not rename anything that I don't want renamed and then copy it in. Okay, so on the build down here, I think what we're going to do is we need to make sure we have the tool restore done. Because, oh, do we not have the EF tooling added? We don't have. I don't see .NET. This is interesting. I would have expected to see .NET tools. Let's see. I don't. What, am I blank? Am I just blind? It knew the tools. Where is the tool? Oh, it's under config. Duh. Okay. Duh. Okay. So we do have .NET EF. Okay, great. That's fine. We're already in VS Code. We're going to continue in here. Okay, so up here, I want to add a couple things. One, we need to make sure on a .NET tool tangent. Oh boy. Oh boy. Hit me, Izzy. Hit me. Let's see. We are going to need to make sure we bring those in. At what point do we want to do this, though? I think I want to do this post-test. Or probably post-build. I think we're going to do it post-build. So the question is, at what point do I actually want to do the EFE stuff? Is it worth doing it before the tests or after? I think is the big question, right? And so one of the things that I am looking to do is check for pending database migrations. Because if there are pending database migrations, we kind of want to fail the build. Let's see here. And so configuration release. For CI/CD, is it best to make tools install at the project and not global? Ooh, debatable. I think it depends a little bit on the tool. I tend to. I'm trying to think of some good examples here. So, for example, things like .NET format, right? I tend to put that at a global level, whereas something like .NET EF, I tend to put at the project level. Most examples show global, but I tend to have issues. Yeah, there are a handful of things that I will put at a global level because I generally feel like they are higher level, especially things where the exact version of the tool is not nearly as critical. Things like .NET EF, you really, really, really want this version in sync with your EF version. And so having this at a global level, like this does not make good sense to me to put at a global level because it's kind of tightly coupled to that EF reference as the NuGet package. Whereas something like .NET format, I can be a little more loosey-goosey, right? Like it doesn't get a lot of updates. It does one thing and one thing only. It formats the code. So it's like I'm kind of okay letting that one live at a global level because it's less about my individual app and more about tooling that I want. So yeah, a lot of people show global because that's the easy way of doing it, right? And the other option that you have now is you do have DNX, right? So you can, similar to how NPM has NPX, to be able to just run tools arbitrarily out of NPM. .NET got a little bit of feature envy, and with .NET 10, you now have DNX, where you can just run tools. It's the equivalent of having them globally. However, it doesn't do the install. It's still DNX still downloads the tool to the same global cache location. It just doesn't install it and add it to the path. But it's still, if you run DNX twice for the same tool, you'll only see it download once because it puts it in the same shared cache. That way it's not, chewing up tons of space. But then it's a quick and easy way of executing. And obviously version number dependent and all that jazz. But yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. And obviously this project is now wrong because this is going to be React app data. React app data. So this one here, the .NET EF tooling has a pending model changes check, so that if somebody ever makes a change to one of the EF models and forgets to generate a migration, this one whacks them upside the head because the number of times I do that is high. So that goes there. And then we want the database bundle. And I think I'm going to build the database bundle down here after publish. I don't know that there's a good reason to do it earlier than this. Thank you, Copilot. That was actually helpful. Let's see, build database bundle. So if our event is not a pull request, we are going to, I think I'm actually going to invert this. And in fact, I might even go as far as to say I only want to do this in this case here. Does that work? Huh. I thought I needed the double curly braces, but this has been working. That's surprising to me. That is surprising to me that I don't need the rest of it. But let's see. So if we're on a push and on main or a workflow dispatch on main, then we'll do the EF migration bundle, self-contained, no build, configuration release, and then we're pointed here, and then we're just going to output an EF bundle. And then the last thing we need to do is upload the bundle. This is one area where I don't like it. And you'll note here on, I previously, and I'm trying to decide if I go and grab this or not. Probably not. I have written a little storage account upload one because the GitHub artifacts pricing
it is really easy to burn through your GitHub artifacts
Storage space with these EF bundles.
very, very easy.
In fact, it would be kind of nice to know. It'd be nice to know if we actually need the migration bundle. I'm trying to decide if there's a way for me to know if there's a newer migration. There probably is. But you'd have to know what the previous migration was to say is the latest migration newer. Because I'm kind of thinking that, well, and I guess you don't actually know because you don't know where this is going to get applied. Grumble, grumble, grumble. We're going to go with upload artifacts. We'll use the built-in one for now. I may come back and grab this action. It's not anything fancy, right? It's an Azure CLI command to upload to a storage account. That's it. That's it. It just, whoop, whoop. You know, though. Nope, I don't want to make the assumption that the bootstrapper's been run. I was going to say the bootstrapper's already standing up a storage account.
It'd probably need to be a separate. Probably wouldn't want it in the same storage account. You different permissions models on each of those. Okay, so that goes there. That goes there. Upload DB migration. Great. Okay, so that gets us there. That gets us to publish. That gets all of that going. I do have a bit of a question in my head of, is this actually how I want to do it? Because you'll note when it goes to deploy the back end, it has to rerun a .NET publish to push up the container. Maybe we should fix that. I'm wondering if I should actually be uploading. I'm wondering if maybe we should just bring this guy forward. Like this is one of those areas where it's like, oh man, I'm really tempted to bring these things up into the other job. We won't do it right now. We won't do it right now. Okay, so now next question. We need to deploy database. So we're gonna go here. Boom, boom, boom. And let's do deploy database. Great. And it's going to basically be a bunch of the same stuff as here. Okay. So we want all of that. It's going to be dependent on the same stuff. Yep. Download migration bundle. Thank you, Copilot. You know what to do with it next? You're close. You're close. That's pretty good. Okay. Run database. Okay. Copilot, you're just showing off now. Okay. No, that is. What is it trying to do? Container app executable. Oh, that's clever. Yeah, you could read the DB if it exists and compare migration IDs with what's in the migration bundle. Yeah, the thing is if you just execute the migration bundle, that's exactly what it does. Is it compares the migrations in the database to what it knows about and then applies any needed migrations. So it doesn't save a ton. Is this really? This is kind of interesting to me. There's no way that's a real command, right? I don't think that's a real. I don't remember seeing a container app Whoa, it does exist. Now that's an interesting idea, Copilot. With a container app replica. So it deploys it into a container app. The only reason I find this interesting is because it would be a way. So if you have your database set up with things like private endpoints and otherwise, right, where your database is only accessible inside of a VNet, where your pipeline agent is obviously not inside that VNet, it can't get to your database, right? That's one of the limitations. This is a very interesting way of doing it. So the example I was about to steal does not do it that way. While I am here, I'm going to grab this one as well because I want to grab the auto merge PR. and grab that because I do want the automatic dependabot merging. That's a thing I want in. I'm just looking at what else I have over here. Because before, here, I'll just drag it over and show you. Before, what I was doing is this, right? Is I was going through, I don't know why I have a checkout here. I don't know why I have this checkout here. I don't think I need to check it out to run it. There's an AZ login, it downloads the migration bundle, and then it just executes it, right? Nothing fancy. And then we intentionally clean it up right after we do it because we don't want anything, being stuck around. And we've got all of the connection string stuff. This now, and you'll note this connection string here can be checked in because it is using Active Directory default as the authentication. So no private credentials anywhere. Effectively, it's saying the login is what's going to be leveraged for connecting to the database. So my pipeline agent ID in this case has the ability to run against the database. But since I have a container app, this is an interesting idea that I did not know was a thing. Backend container app name. So hold on. What is it going to do when I run as that? The name of the container app. So it goes out, opens an SSH-like interactive shell within a container app replica. Okay, so this is similar to taking like kubectl out and just jumping straight into a pod. The name of the container to SSH into. Interesting. Interesting. A replica may not exist if there is not traffic to your app. Interesting. I wonder what happens if this thing is scaled to 0 when this runs. Huh. Which, in theory, means as long as this guy has access to hit my container app environment, I think this just works. I might have to. Okay, I want to see if this works because if this actually does this, this command seems wrong. Let's see, command blah 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 defaults to sh, yada yada yada. But the problem I have here is this doesn't upload, like, this would execute inside a container app, but it's not going to. But the bundle isn't out there. That's the thing, is I would have to ship the bundle as part of my app image in order for this to work. I don't know if I want to do that. I'm more likely to ship a separate image. Because I'd be more inclined to ship a separate image and have a different image do the upgrade for it. That's a more interesting approach. That is a much more interesting approach. Huh. I will keep this in mind. I think I'm going to not do this right now because I would have to leverage a handful of things to make that happen. I think I am just going to steal what I had before and grab this. Because I assume this is going to download to here, and then I want to grab. Oh, actually, hang on. Before I whack that, let me paste it alongside because I think it's got my connection string. If it doesn't, I need to go make sure I add my connection string. So get outputs. So what are you grabbing? Outputs, backend container at name, ACR service URL. Database connection string. Doo-doo-doo. So this does all of that. Okay, Copilot. Yeah, thank you. Put it back. Database connection string. So I need to make sure that that actually exists in the outputs from my infrastructure. So you'll note all of these outputs are coming from these ones here. And obviously, database connection string is not one of those, at least not yet. But we can fix that. So we can go here. Let's see. Okay, Copilot, impress me. Okay, you didn't fix my typo. I'm disappointed. Okay, sensitive. I don't think this should be sensitive, but I don't actually know what's in it. I don't actually know what's in it. Because I would hope this would be the connection string sans with the, well, how would I specify? I'm probably going to have to append some stuff to this. I don't think I can take it as is. Okay, well, let's go look at my module, right? So short version, the way you read a Terraform resource here, it's always type name. So in this case, type is module, name prod. Type is database connection string, which would be an or I shouldn't say type. Output variable is there, but I don't know that that actually exists as an output. No, it does not. It does not. It does not. It does not. Okay, Copilot, add it. Here's a hint. O, U, T. You're not helping. Database connection string. Because I'm tempted, I'm trying to decide at what level do I do the concatenation. Because if I do the concatenation all the way down in my database module, I can probably get away with not making it sensitive because I'll know what's in it. It's probably not bad. So there's connection string right there. Why is that pointed at local? What did I do? Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, that is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so I do know that it's non-sensitive. Ah ha ha. Okay. So that guy's non-sensitive, which means I can go here, which means I can make you non-sensitive, which means I can go all the way up here and I can make you non-sensitive because there's not going to be creds in it. Sweet. Sweet, 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 sweet. Okay. So you are still sensitive. Okay, so that gets me the database connection string. That's now an output variable. That's an output variable. That comes down here, and now I do this guy, and I replace this whole big ugly thing with a single variable, database connection string. Then that should apply the migrations all the way out. Okay, let's send it. Full send. This should get me. Let's see here. Let's see. Go through here. Put me on the left. Come on. Come on, Kraken. Generate your stuff. Yeah, good. Great. Send it. As you can see, I've done a little bit of work on this not real repository. For a not real app, I've done a ton of work on this not real app. I'm also trying to decide how far I go down like the identity bits, right? Like it has the basic ASP.NET Core identity stuff plugged in with the SQL backing for basically regular forms login, but it kind of just like hand waves away the email verification and all of that stuff. Like it doesn't add in an Azure Communication Services or anything of that nature. Maybe it should. I don't know. Like, it's like, I don't know. Is that useful? Maybe. Maybe. Again, it's one of those, it's like, I could plug that in, and then the person could come along and say, well, no, we, of course, use SendGrid for that. Okay, great. Like, so it's like, I don't know how much to add. Did we include the solution in that? Oh, I didn't hit save on that. I missed my solution items. That's okay. That's okay. We'll grab it next time. Okay, so that goes there. React app test. This guy is probably going to fail. Oh. Hang on. Cancel. You've successfully requested be canceled. Yeah, good, thanks. Why did my infrastructure one fail? Plan. Module database declared in module. Oh, well, let's go look. I guess I should have probably run Terraform. So cd infra. Get myself out of the way. Make this bigger. So you can do Terraform validate, and it will at least validate the syntactic nature of your stuff. And oh, look, there's the same error. Well, let's go take a look. Okay, so this guy here, module database. Close some of this stuff down. I got too much I'm looking at. Okay, so that no worky. So we go look at the module reference because it's probably something in here that I've botched. Oh, the module name is SQL, not database. That will make a difference. Okay, try again. Config is valid. Yay! Now we have an excuse to add in the other stuff. Amend, force push, send it. Okay, so that goes there. Okay, so while it's running, we'll just go through and show off a handful of more things inside of this Aspire app host thing. So even within Aspire, there is a lot of, I guess, opinion that I went through and added into it in terms of what I like to do. So I like being able to have some easy way of getting access to my containerized database. And with a database, there's always this question of should you containerize it or not? Like, do you want persistence? So in my setup of the way Kevin deems the best way to go through and do it is, well, let's actually start with the adding of the SQL server, right? So on my SQL server, we're tagging with the latest image name because we need it for compatibility level. This will probably die at some point when the default stuff catches up. But I run the container with a persistent lifetime. What that means is normally when you start and stop your Aspire app, it'll actually tear down all the dependencies, right? Won't leave them running. It's because it wants to take back and reclaim all those resources that stood up. The problem is then you eat the database startup time every time, which is not overly fast. So my small preference is leave the database up and running. I do have a container name here that's somewhat configurable for the UI test. We'll get back to that in a moment. And then I also specify a data volume so that the data is persistent. Otherwise, without a data volume, every time the container would die, your data would get whacked, right? And I've gone back and forth about whether I like this or not. Usually, I think I like it more often than not. I think. I don't know. It's 50-50. Like, sometimes it's, if you have good seeding for your app, I sometimes get rid of this, right? If you can reseed your database really easy, and it's not, and you don't, and the loss of the data every time you torch your container or reboot, right? It's not that bad. Great, you don't need persistent storage. But I think more people prefer this setup, so I was like, I don't have a too strong of a preference. But then if we look at the, jump back, at the database, right, we stand the database up, and then with Aspire, you can actually add on a bunch of extra commands. So the dashboard is not like a fully configurable thing, but there's a lot of configuration in it, right? And it's not designed to be fully configurable. Like when they first launched it, they actually, like,
they didn't realize it was going to be as big of a success as it was going to be, because people were like, how do I deploy this into my Azure environment? Like, I like being able to have all my console stuff. I like being able to have my structured logs. I like being able to see my traces and my metrics and all of that stuff all happening. Like, this thing's awesome, right? And they're like, dude, you realize this thing is potentially a major security leak. Like, it's got access to a lot of stuff, right? You probably don't want to deploy it. And eventually they've actually made it something that you can go through and deploy. But underneath all of these things here, like, for example, the database, right? Actually, I want to be down on the database. I've gone through and added in my own little operations for, hey, restore the tools for me, create a migration, remove a migration, apply database migrations. Now, the one thing to note about this is these commands are just running .NET for me, because I'm just too lazy to go open a terminal and CD into the right directory. That's it. Like, that's literally all they're saving me, is opening a terminal at the right directory. The other thing that's important to note is if you do create migration, because migrations are compiled into your assembly, it doesn't magically like add that migration to the compiled assembly. You do have to stop and recompile for it to show up. Yeah, and deploy it in a secure and sensible manner, I hope. Yeah, so you'll note one of the things even locally that it ends up doing is there's actually a login token, even for localhost, right? It's just, it automatically injects this into the startup URL so that you don't have to think about it. And so it automatically logs you in. But yes, they do have a secure by default version of this guy out there, and actually they took it even a step further. Let me go, where's my thing? So if I go back here and I go back to my container app, and you can do this even if you don't have Aspire. Inside of where is it? Yes, yeah, right here. So Azure Container App environments literally have buttons in the portal for, hey, you want an Aspire dashboard for these containers? Because, like, it's really handy to view all this stuff. Like, you can just set it up. And the default out here is to lock it. I'm trying to remember. It locks it down to your Azure tenant. So at a minimum, you're not just deploying out publicly unsecured, right? It locks it down to your Azure tenant, and if I remember right, there's some extra config if you want to like tie it down to an AD group or something. I don't remember exactly the extra auth you can do around it, but there's added stuff. It might be an IAM role to access it on the container app. There's some way of actually locking it down further beyond just the tenant as well. That way it's only available to those people who should be able to get in and see the container app environment. It may tie to the existing roles. One second. One moment. Trying to find the button. Boom. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Had to get my window open. Boom. Okay. So yeah, so it just like, it's quite popular as a way of being able to do it. So because they unfortunately made it all the way there, but it is configurable enough to be able to say, hey, I can add in my own commands. Again, this is just running .NET. Like, this is a process start on .NET, just pointed at the right directories, building things up, leveraging the existing connection strings, yada, 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 of being able to go through and do it. And the other cool part that comes along with it is you can even, and this is it, these APIs are beat me this time. Yeah, no problem, Izzy. There is a small amount of UI bits available to you. These are behind preview analyzers, so if you try to access the UI stuff, you will have to suppress the, hey, this is a preview API analyzer, which in my opinion, fine, whatever, right? Like, this API subject to change, and it's not, you don't have a ton of UI capabilities to it. But like, for example, this is create migration here.
you'll note I just reach in and grab the interactive service because you'll note there's the suppression of the warning, right? And then I can prompt input to say, hey, enter the name of the migration. And that gives me a dialogue, and then I can continue on my merry way. So you can do a handful of pretty cool stuff in here. The other thing that I've done is I've set it up so that when I'm running with my local Aspire, when my database resource becomes ready, it actually blindly runs my EF migrations against it. And because I'm super lazy, if the applying of my EF migrations fails for any reason, I just assume that the most likely failure is it couldn't find the right .NET tools. So it just blindly restores tools and applies the migration a second time. For no other reason other than when I have a fresh project or a fresh restore, I like to be able to F5 and just have it all work. Yeah, when you work with bleeding edge bits, you get used to preview notifications. Yeah, and I get it, right? They don't want people, getting unhappy when they inevitably change these APIs because they may not be sure that they're exactly the shape they want them in yet. Because Aspire, they seem to be releasing on about a monthly cadence. Let me go back and look at their docs. I think it is bloody fast. Let's see, where's their release notes? Let's see. What's new in Aspire 13? Right. So what are the dates on the releases? Because they release very, very, very fast. Yeah, and they went from version 9 to version 13 for reasons. I did not keep track of all of the ones. But I think it feels like it's been about every month they're pushing stuff out, and there's just like they move really, really fast. Like the Aspire team is cruising, absolutely cruising. Okay, so let's go back here. Where's this guy? Is this? I don't remember which one I'm looking at. Let's go here. Okay, so deploy infrastructure now worked. Is what we expect. Good. The other one may... This guy here, I'm curious what he failed on, but it could be... Check for pending migrations. Okay. Okay. Tools version is older than that of the runtime. I want an easier way to keep these things in sync. Okay, so I want to add in new solution folder .config. I want that. I want add existing item config there and there. Great. So I want to do this and this. That does that. Okay, great. So that'll fix that. Oh, wait. Control Shift S to get the solution file to update. There we go. Let's see, put me on the other side. Auto-gen a message. Pretending to be Apple. iPhone 8 to iPhone X. Yeah. Like they do usually have reasons when they skip versions. Like so for example, when Microsoft did the .NET Core releases, right? When they went from framework to core, there was .NET Core 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and they went, oh crap. If we do 4.0, there might be confusion with .NET Framework, which is currently sitting on, I think at that point they were on 4.5. I don't quite remember exactly which version of 4 they were on. iOS 13 to iOS 26. Yeah, there was that. But there was like, oh, well, shoot, we can't do 4. Net 5 it is, right? So they literally just jumped 4 for no other reason than to avoid confusion. And there may have been other reasons, but at least the one that they had said was, hey, we didn't want confusion with Net Framework, so we're just going to skip 4 and go straight to 5, right? And so there's stuff like that where they just jump versions because of other things that they're trying to watch out for. I'm trying to remember. There was a reason they skipped Windows 9, and I can't remember. I remember jokes around because German 9 be no, but I don't remember if that was like an actual reason or if that was a meme. I don't remember which it was. It was at least a meme. It may have been more than that. Okay, so this guy now should actually run and build and get past the check. I just want to see it get past the check for pending database migrations. And then we'll see what it ends up doing. Actually, while this guy is running, I want to actually let's duplicate this tab, and I want to move this over here because I need to go briefly check just to see if I'm about to get hosed by my subscription and usage, because this repo is potentially chewing up quite a bit. Let's see. Here's the billing stuff. Billing usage. Wasn't that because it was too similar to 8 and no one liked it, so they restarted to bring it back close to a previous version. Ah, okay. See, that would make more sense to me. Let's see here. Oh, so we're cruising right along. Okay. I'm just looking at my GitHub usage and cost. Just to make sure. It's you can tell what days I was on GitHub. Can absolutely tell what days. Okay, so what did we do here? Check pending database changes. Unable to create DB context. Oh. That is an interesting problem. Because it needs this guy. Okay, so when it goes to create, let me pop my, I don't know what state my Velopack stuff is in. I was doing other work, so we will see how this goes. So the problem in question here of what it's running up against is needing to be able to build the DB context. So inside of my data project, and so something I like to do is I like to have my EF stuff kind of separated from the rest of my stuff, right? I feel like things often get cluttered together, and I don't like that. So you'll note the DB context for this app is fairly simple and straightforward. Oh, I can actually probably kill off all of the SQLite stuff too. I don't think I need any of this because I might need to look. I might be using SQLite in the tests. Let me look. I am using SQLite. What am I using the in-memory one for? I'll have to go and look. I don't think I'm using it. So I am using SQLite inside of there. Okay. So I can't kill that off. But the issue being that it needs to be able to create this DB context, doesn't know how to do it. Now, I do have this guy here up at a slightly higher level, which might get me close, because fortunately this is really all I'm looking for. But I think for, what did I end up doing in Velopax one? I think I ended up building, I think I moved it down inside of here. Yeah, as a way of building it. I don't know that that's the way I want to do it. Did I add an overloaded constructor is my other question. I don't think I did. I didn't. It's just that. So if it must be willing to use the design time factory. Yeah, just a shame the in-memory one doesn't support all the DB features, so sometimes you need a real one like SQLite. Yeah, that is the other thing I don't like with the in-memory one is that it doesn't actually validate your queries. Like EF by definition is kind of a leaky abstraction. Like you can write link queries that will work with database provider A but not database provider B. And so by that definition, your provider is leaking up
because the abstraction is not perfectly abstracted away. Right, so it's already kind of an issue. The other thing, so I'll show this off. This is one of the absolute coolest things, UI test base. So with Aspire, they actually come with testing, like real good test. Because you've got that Aspire app host for setting up your app, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if I could use that for running my tests? Because it already knows how to start my front end. It already knows how to start my back end. It knows how to build out all of the stuff that goes along with my application, right? So just like how ASP.NET Core has the Web Application Factory, which, you know, starts up your app, gives you a nice, easy way of kind of starting up that back end and running. Well, Aspire goes, well, we can do that, but we can do it in spades. So they actually have a distributed application testing builder where you can point it at your app host and it will then start your app host. And it's very similar to how you would do tests with Web Application Factory, except for rather than starting up just one service and getting an HTTP client to go against it, you get your whole config. And this is the whole reason why my database has that in-memory suffix that I allowed for configuration on, is because when I launch it this way, when I am running my UI tests, I want to start from a clean database every time. Like, I want some level of consistency, and I don't want that database conflicting with my main one. So when I run my UI test, I start up and I put an extra suffix on the end of my database. That way they don't pollute it. And then I do go through and do a handful of kind of munging around to clean up the SQL Server resource so that it doesn't have that persistent volume, that it doesn't have the lifetime, so it actually gets shut down properly, right? So this, I'm functionally getting now a Docker container MS SQL instance, so I actually get a real SQL instance to play with, which is so much better. You then build your app host, you then start your app host, and then in my case, I just wait for the front end to go healthy, because in my app host dependency chain, the front end is at the very end, right? It doesn't get to start until the back end starts. The back end doesn't get to start until the database starts. So by the time we get to here, we're already off to the races. And then you can actually go through and leverage this guy to be able to get access to connection strings and similar, right? So I can use this to say, oh, well, what's the URL of one of the resources in that in-memory Aspire host? So I can say, hey, give me the endpoint of my front end. So if you noticed in my app host, I had a bunch of these things named as constants. The only reason they're constants is so that the string that I use in my app host and the string that I use in my UI tests, I can have a shared constant between them. Let's see. For my tests, I use a library that makes a copy of the real ones and injects the new connection string. Yeah, and that, like, I think what the Aspire team probably looked at what a lot of people were having to build. And I imagine, like, nothing that they've done is inherently revolutionary, but they've brought a lot of pieces together that people had either built homegrown tools for or otherwise, and put them all in one nice little package, which is really nice, right? It's nice to have all of that stuff kind of in the box, where when you go, oh, how do I do testing? How do I do this? It's like, well, here is an answer for you, right? This gets you up and running very easily. You can do the same thing if you want to access like the database directly to do database seeding. You can actually just reach into the Aspire app host and say, hey, give me the connection string to the database that you just spun up. I'm going to, go run database seeding or whatever it's going to do. In this case, this app doesn't need to do any seeding because it can start from a clean state and be perfectly happy. But like one of the ones in my day job, we also use Aspire, and in our UI tests, I do spin this up. I do go after my database connection string, and I do seed in a bunch of data just so that the UI tests have everything they need, and then they go and do all the playwrighty stuff, and you're off to the races, which is great. And it works really nice. Okay. I already forgot where I was going. So this guy here, I think what I need to do is provide me a DB context, I think is what I need. And I'm trying to decide if I just copy this sucker down or not. The problem being is this call here is not something that is usable down in my database project. And so I'm somewhat tempted. Let me go and look here real quick at the. Where's my. I need a terminal. I need a terminal. Okay. Terminal. Okay, so I want to look at this one because I would be surprised if they didn't expose out an extra option or something, because I'd like to be able to tell it to look in a because we are failing at bundle. No, we are failing up here on check model changes, because in order to check this, it has to be able to do, right? I believe this is correct. Let me just confirm. I believe it's failing here. Looking for the, checking pending model-based pages. Okay, good. Okay, so I think most of the time a lot of the EF calls give you an option for specifying, let's see, the DB context you can use. This will also disable service discovery to the starter project if a corresponding command for all context corresponding. Yeah, so I think all we're lacking is startup project, but we can test. Let's grab the whole command and we can just run this locally, because this should replicate very nicely for me. All right. Oy vey. Okay. Okay, good. So that thing failed in the same way. So I think what we can get away with is because I think we can just set our startup project to the Aspire host and get away with this. Startup project, React app host, React app host, CS project. I think this will work, because then it should use the startup project to find the right DB context factory, which is, in my opinion, is the best case scenario, because then I don't have to do anything funky with my code. Excellent. That's all we need. That is all we need. Because I'd like to not have to ship my... let's see. Do I have a default terminal shell set up here? I don't. Let me look. There is a command you can set on these guys. I think I've got it here. Yeah, defaults run shell. That's what I want. I want that. I want that. Okay, so that goes like that. That goes like that. Oh, I actually have this front end project path. Maybe I should actually do this. Data project path. I should probably leverage this. Just to be consistent on all of these. That's just the working directory, though. I might even just abandon the other one and hard code them all the way in. I don't know that there's a lot of it. Yeah. Well, okay. Regardless, let's see. The whole reason for doing this is so that I could get away with this. Because I actually want to do that, and then we can do that, and then I want same command I ran over here. So we're going to do the slashes the other direction, because this is going to be a
Ubuntu machine that we run on. There we go. That goes like that. Ba-bum. That feels better to me. I think I'm going to do the same thing down here. Okay, so we're going to do that. There. 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 I think we're going to end up needing the same treatment down here. I'm fairly confident we will, because otherwise it has no way of knowing how to build the EF bundle. So for anybody who's wondering what the EF bundle actually is, if you've ever written a little bit of code that just creates a DB context and calls migrate async, that's functionally what you're getting, is a little executable that just bundles up all of your EF stuff and then calls migrate database. Okay, so that goes there. That goes there. That should fix that problem. Okay. There. My Mountain Dew is empty. Don't worry. Back at Mountain Dew. Okay. That guy is up and running. That guy's going there. That guy's going there. Okay. Yeah. So more fun Aspire stuff while that thing takes off running. So the other thing that you can actually do is in your dashboard, you can go through and you aren't bound by just the resources that exist from Microsoft or otherwise, right? Like generally your Aspire app host is going to have a bunch of Aspire hosting and then relevant projects for whatever stuff you're using, right? So in my case, I've got SQL, app containers, JavaScript, SQL Server, all of that kind of stuff going in there. But you'll note I've also got this lovely little like docs one that I made. Like there's not actually a folder resource one out there. So I just made one. And it was that simple, is I now have one of these things. It's just a parent container and aggregates endpoints and whatnot together, and that's it. Like I made a little resource, and now in my app host, when I get down to where's my docs stuff? Add Aspire docs, right? So I do add logical group, which is going to then leverage my logical group resource, do the needful. It subscribes, watching for changes, so that as its children change state, it updates accordingly. That way, if I want to group things together, I can do so. But just a very simple way of saying, oh, I want to be able to group these things together and have kind of this parent-child relationship between all of these. This other one that I have here that I really like is this dbgate resource. So I'll hit go. It'll probably have to download the container, because I don't think I have the container downloaded right now. So dbgate is just a very simple in-memory browser for a database. And so all of this stuff that I have configured, I've gone through and set it up, and these are just the environment variables for dbgate for how it's going to launch. And you'll note I also make it persistent, but I don't back it with anything because it doesn't need to be. So now if I want to go and browse my local database, I'm off to the races, right? Like no more needing to go through and run like SSMS or similar just to be able to go through and peruse my database. Like I've got access to my database. I can look at it. I can run SQL. I've got all of this stuff. Because one of the things that kind of gets annoying when you do the containerized databases is if you let Aspire just generate stuff, it will generate stuff, but then it will often, it won't always generate the same things every time. And so if you've got like save connection strings or otherwise, you end up having to go through and configure things so it doesn't move around on you. This one here, I just say, nah, don't worry about. Just grab the endpoint, grab whatever password you generated for it. I don't really care what password it is. Just plug it in here so that I don't have to think real hard. And now
poof, you can get this in. So anything that can come in as a Docker container is fairly easy to pull in as an Aspire resource, and you're off to the races, which opens up a whole slew of tools. Like the number of tools that you generally download for a project that just run as a Docker container is usually fairly high, at least in my experience. And so you just get all of that stuff, and now you can start using it. And so I just nested it under MySQL. So if I want to put all of my database stuff, it's there. The front end stuff is there. The only thing I wish I had more control over on this UI is I'd like some control around, like I'd like it to remember the state of these expanders. I wish it would remember that for me. There's an open issue out on the Aspire repo. I think it's still open. It was open several weeks ago, of people actually going about this, and there was a whole bunch of questions. Well, what about when things change? What about when things are added? If something's failing and we don't roll up the status, how does that show? It hides it from the user. Yada. Like there was a bunch of debates on it. So at some point, I'm sure they'll figure it out. But it's a very minor thing of remembering the collapse state. The other really cool thing is like all of these console logs. You'll note it is dumping all of these out to me, but I can filter it down and say, okay, just show me the database stuff. Right? I'm logging my SQL queries. I can see everything going on with this. I can clear my data. I can bounce around. And if that wasn't good enough, you get full structured logging all built in, so you can actually trace through and follow multiple calls through different resources or different services, as long as those are all set up. And if you're using the service defaults on all your resources, you get that set up for you because it's using the open telemetry traces. And as long as everything has the same operation ID, I think that's the right term, that will end up linking all of those together. So same stuff. If you're already doing that kind of stuff for like Dynatrace or similar, like you've probably already got it. It's just now, once again, reasonable defaults all in the box. Okay. Have I stalled long enough while it finished running? Let's go look. Well, it's still running, so that's probably a good sign. Hey, look at that. So it ran the build. It got past all of that. Let's see. It's attempting to deploy the database. Oh, this is interesting. I don't know how I feel about this. So it's deploying the database at the same time it's deploying the back end and the front end. That gives me a bit of pause. Because if it deploys, is that what I want by default? Like, this is obviously the fastest way to deploy all the things. Just run them all in parallel, send it, right? That's fine. But in reality, you probably shouldn't do that simultaneously. Like, in general, you would do something a little different rather than just YOLO it all out there. Maybe I'll just leave it to do. Because that's one of those areas where every company is going to have their own kind of thoughts on what is correct. So let's make it work first. Let's see. Connection is empty string. Well, that is clearly wrong. So get outputs. Let's look here. Get Terraform outputs. Can I see those outputs anywhere? I don't see a listing of the outputs anywhere, so that's not a good sign. Let's see. It's like I broke all my outputs. I think it broke all my outputs. Okay, let's go down here. What did I break? What did I break? Why did I lose all my outputs? So get infrastructure outputs. Terraform outputs. Database connection string. Database connection string.
Terraform output raw database connection string all the way through. Close that down. That seems like what I would expect, but why? I'm surprised that I'm not. GitHub output doesn't get exposed to you anywhere. But the fact that none of these things here have. The fact that this thing shows an empty connection string here. And the Azure. Why is the front end requiring to log? Oh, it did. Okay. This one failed here. Okay. Got it. Deployment token was not provided. Okay. Great. So so I foobarred something about all of them. Let's look at the diffs. So there's that. That's fine. Like none of those are related. That's unrelated. Okay, so we may have broken it earlier because we didn't know. We weren't able to test further down when this thing was failing here, so we could have broken it down here when we first added them. So we added in auto merge. And that's fine there. So all I did was add in database connection string as an output there, which makes sense. And then we echo database connection string down here, which makes sense. Right? All of those. I'm just surprised that it would. I'm wondering if this is bad. I wonder if this is. If something goes wrong here, is there something? Make this bigger. Is there something I did? Database connection string, Terraform output. I don't. I'm just comparing it to the one above it. That shouldn't do anything there. Yeah, that's all fine as far as I can tell. So then I'm wondering if I messed it up on the infrastructure side. So database connection string here absolutely should match the one here, which it does. So that's fine. Why would it fail in there somewhere? Well, so here's what we should be able to do. I should be able to go into my infra, right? And I should be able to run this because I should be, oh, actually I may not. Hang on, let me check my AZ login. I may be logged into the wrong account. Just do the needful here real quick. So I suspect, yeah, I'm signed in with the wrong account. One moment. I need to be in the correct account for this to work. Because again, this is running against my personal Azure subscription. This should just dump what I expect, right? Oh. Does it have, it has quotes in it. I bet you that's the problem. I bet you that's what's going on. Is there's quotes in this. Ooh. So how do I okay, so I need GitHub actions. Actions output variable with quotes. So I'm going to that I'm willing to bet that's the problem. Passing strings with quotes to next. Yeah. That is it. Can I just backslash them? Those ones. The content, and you do this. You drop the double quotes. The command first gets the Russian needs. So the equivalent is that you can test with this. Echo VNet equals. You drop the double quotes. Quotes get removed because they're syntactical, not literal. The best way to fix it is that the context expression is an environment variable and then use the environment variable. Oh, that's so bad. Prevent script injections. Yeah, but in this case, I trust the outputs because they're mine. I'm not worried about script injection. Is that really the only way of getting around that? Step output and quote issues. Ba-ba-bum. Is handled before bash ever sees it. Um, so in your case, bash sees this. Note there's no variable. Yeah, okay. So this guy here drops in, but this is actually just evaluating. Okay, so ugh, ugh. I hate it. 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 This is why I need to template this garbage. Let's see here. DB connection string. What's that? Does that work inside of Bash? Well, the other thing that, oh, that's what else I've done. That's where I broke it. This isn't a bash command. Oh. Hang on, we might be fine. We might be fine. I'm an idiot. It's because oh, what a subtle devious change. What a subtle devious change. It wasn't here, it was the commit after I broke it. No, this one I broke it. I broke it here. I broke it right bloody there. That's what I did. Because the default terminal on an Ubuntu machine is bash, and I subtly switched it to PowerShell, which changes the way quotes are going to be managed. Ha 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 ha. And because Echo is aliased inside of bash, it just works. So we either switch this guy to be bash or we switch this to be PowerShelly. Change this to be PowerShell syntax. I don't remember what it is. Copilot, you think about that for a second. Is that really it? Actions, PowerShell, GitHub, output. Okay, so where is the... No. Workflow commands, output variable. What is the... Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was this. That looks more right to me. Yuck. No, we aren't going to do that. This guy here, nope. Just change the shell. This is one of those cases where, like, I don't like PowerShell, but I like that I can do PowerShell core and run it on both Windows and Ubuntu, and it behaves the same way. But in this case, yeah, it's a lot more effort to do that. Okay, so that is almost assuredly the problem. Is I subtly changed out my terminal and then shot myself in the foot because of it. Lovely. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll let that guy go for a moment. He can go think about what he's done. Okay, so other cool things about Aspire. So one, obviously, they co-piloted all the things. You can have a co-pilot, you can chat in here, yada yada yada. That's cool. That's interesting. That's not that helpful, right? Like, it's nice to be able to like have it help you analyze stuff. But the problem is this co-pilot doesn't know anything about your code. It only knows about what's inside of this, which again could be helpful, right? Like, hey, why is this thing not starting? Hey, help me analyze this log, right? Yada yada yada. What's more helpful is if you have something that knows about your code that can also look at your runtime resources, because this is one of the biggest issues that I see with a lot of AI agents right now, is getting the right context to them is not always trivial. So Copilot, yeah, great, kind of cool, whatever, right? This is where the coolness is, right? So one, there is an Aspire CLI. And you'll note on my local tools, I have that installed. So overview CLI, right? So there is this guy here, and there's a lot of stuff. The install script makes me feel, it feels weird. Feels weird. I never like it when people do their install by, hey, just directly execute this remote PowerShell script. That always makes me twitchy, right? I mean, they've got directions for you can download it and look at it yourself, but it's a big script. Ain't nobody got time for that. But what it does have inside of it is the starting point for an Aspire MCP server. So the Aspire CLI can run as an MCP server. When Aspire is running, there's this bootstrapper process called DCP, I think is what it's called. That is what is in charge of interacting with Docker, making sure things are spinning up. It's what you're actually interacting with. And so what the Aspire MCP does is it looks for running DCP processes and starts communicating back and forth with them to say, hey, what resources do you have? Hey, give me the logs for this, right? So once you have the Aspire MCP working, you can actually use it to be able to say, oh, let's have a chat about what's going on with my running app. So for example, I think I have this guy set up. And let me make sure I've got Aspire. So I do have my Aspire MCP set up already. So anybody who needs to do it, there is the in the, where'd it go? Where did my running? No, there it is. So if you need to do it, once you have the Aspire MCP in it, gets you up and running, and then you can configure it in your tool of choice. In my case, we'll do VS Code. Here's the mcp.json config, right? So it's just a simple standard IO, simple CLI. It's just running Aspire MCP start, not doing anything fancy, right? So I can come in here and go, and I'm going to be real explicit about this, what Aspire resources are running, right? So I can just, and I can probably dial down. We're going to dial down we can actually probably take this guy all the way down to a tiny cheap, we're going to go cheap model, right? So starting MCP servers, for whatever reason, it thinks it needs to start the get cracking MCP. Go ahead and skip that one. Let's see, and so it wants to go through, it wants to list resources. I trust this MCP. No Aspire app host is currently running. Well, that's a bold-faced lie, right?
Let's relaunch this guy. I disagree. I'm going to go with I probably should have let it start up all of the MCP servers because I'm guessing I probably, when I hit skip, I may have killed off all of them. So let's come in here. Let's turn off some of the other MCPs so it doesn't get over eager about what it wants to launch. Turn off a bunch of stuff. Don't need all the stuff. No cheating with extra stuff. Okay. Then we're going to come back here. What Spire resources are running? And then we'll just pre-can this guy preemptively. What errors are in my logs? The list of Spire app hosts. Okay, so it actually it did a full plan for such a simple command. I just wanted you to invoke a tool. Always allow, list app hosts, do the needful. Apparently, I haven't run this MCP on here because generally for the Aspire tools, I generally trust them. Like there's only like they do have a decent amount of permission. Like they can look at all of my running stuff. They can, in theory, leak the connection string, but it's all just my local running resources. So, wow, that's not giving me warm fuzzy feelings. Maybe we should actually look at let's see. I'm planning to call select app host. Okay. Select app host. Did you just try to list resources without selecting an app host? That seems dumb. And I am aware that I am slightly behind on one of my things. While it's thinking about what it's doing, I'm going to go change put my, still chugging along. Uh-oh, deploy database failed. We'll look at that in just a second. No, we'll look at it now. This guy's going to keep thinking about what it's doing. Okay, there it figured its way out, right? So what errors are in my logs? Send it. All right, so now it knows something about my stuff, and more importantly, this Copilot instance is also inside my code, so it now has the full link between running Aspire host and my code. This is gold when it comes to tracking stuff down, because it can now look at the running application and go, oh, I see what's wrong. Let me go through and fix it, right? It's not perfect. We went round and round before about, infrastructure stuff in Azure, because without like an Azure MCP, it can't look at your Azure resources to know what's going wrong. Without the GitHub MCP, it can't really look at, let's see, list console logs, always allow, always allow. Oh, it's prompting me for every single resource, isn't it? Always allow. There, go. Without access to more tools, it can't necessarily always hit your running environment, but this is great for tracking through individual stuff. Like, I find this to be incredible. Let's see, Hessen. To run bash commands in PowerShell, prefix them with WSL. However, that requires Windows Subsystem Linux to be installed on your system. Yeah. No, and I do have it installed. It was more around what do I want on my pipeline, because the pipeline in question, I directly specify Ubuntu latest as my runner, which the default behavior is to get it going. And so it's like, like I often like having the PowerShell because in my mind, it just feels easier to copy and paste into my Windows terminal. But yeah, no, I do have WSL with an Ubuntu. I think it's I can't remember. I think it's a 2004. It may be new. I can't remember which one I grabbed. It's slightly older because it's been a while since I updated it, but because I often do run into that situation where I need Ubuntu to test things. So there we go. Again, no errors at the moment, which is good. Okay, speaking of no errors, let's go look at an error. Okay, well, the backend failed, which is surprising me. Missing expression after urinary operator. That sounds like I just botched my escape. So let me go check that out. Oh.
It's almost like I didn't realize what this was about to do when I did it. All right? Like I knew it was a bad idea. Okay, so that goes like that. That goes like that. That goes like that. Okay. Bum. Yeah, those things are fine. Okay, Copilot, go away. I need my screen real estate. Okay, so that should fix the back end error. Now let's go see what deploy database is doing to me. Apply migration. Let's see, what did it do here? Oh, it's the same problem. Same bloody problem. Because the quotes here are going to bite me. Let me go look at what I had done on my other one. The magical incantation is backslash the quotes. Okay. So I believe the function is called replace, and I believe it'll look something like. Okay, did you fill it in properly, Copilot? I think it's something like that. Let me just pull the docs. Let's see. GitHub actions, string functions, something. Yeah. I think it's here. Let's see. Functions. That's contains. Ends with format. I believe it's called replace. Status check functions. Object filters. Where is the... No, there is a replacement function, and I don't remember what it's called. Files from JSON to JSON. I mean, I can pull it out and I can just do the replace inside of Bash as well. Yeah, I don't. I'm not crazy, right? Replaces the value in string with a value. Yeah, but that assumes. Yeah, that's not it. I could have sworn there was a replace function. Maybe I'm getting. Oh, well, we're in a script. JC, good morning. Good morning. How are you doing today? Okay. Let's see here. Hey, Copilot, I need you to fix this for me. Let's see. This connection string will contain quotes. Pull it into a variable and escapes them. There we go. Everyone's crazy. Just depends where on the rainbow you are. Let's see here. So let's see here. I'm trying to grep this all the way through. So / look for the literal quote, because this backslash quote is for escaping it here. Replace it with backslash quote close. Okay. I think that looks right. Let's do this. Yeah, that's let's see.
JC had flu all week, despite the flu jab slowly recovering. Oh, dang. I'm sorry to hear that. There has been something going around the last couple weeks. I've known multiple people in very different geographic locations, admittedly all across the U.S., that have all just gotten leveled by flu-like symptoms this year. And it hits hard. It was funny. Even my son, who's 9, to do math in my head, was commenting that some kids in his class were out sick. It's like, it seems like they've been out sick for a really long time. I'm like, yeah, it actually does feel that way. Now, he's kind of a weird case because of all of his medical stuff, but it's one of those, like, when he's commenting that people have been out for a while, you know it's been a while. Okay, so that hopefully gets the deployment. Not just the US. Yeah, UK is also affected by flu COVID recently. Oh, lovely. Excellent. I was worried we weren't sharing with the rest of the world. Yeah, it is. It is no joke this year. Fortunately, I haven't gotten anything despite being around people who have then come up sick. So I'm going to assume that it's the copious amount of Mountain Dew that makes my body inhospitable to all, viruses and germs. That's the theory I'm going to go with. Probably not right, but it's a working theory. Okay, so while that's going, let's go down here, and I want to let's see, Aspire. Is it update? What did they actually? This is the other thing, is I think the Aspire devs have figured out that people like me that are a little OCD do not like banners. Banners, bad. They all indicate things that I need to go and deal with immediately. Right? That's not okay. And so every time there's an update to Aspire, I must go and update immediately. That is the only way forward, obviously. But you'll note they've made it stupid simple, right? Update your Aspire project. Update the Aspire CLI itself. Oh, well, that's really bloody convenient. Right? So we literally can just go Aspire update. And then it goes. Izzy, time for me to go sneeze on the grindstone. See you in 2 weeks. Time to catch up on some YouTube recordings. Yes, 2 weeks out. So for people who weren't here at the beginning, I am traveling next week, so no stream February 26th. But because I will be on a plane, and streaming on a plane is difficult. So I will be back the following week. There we go. Everything's updated. Everyone's happy. We can go through and look and see what it did. For the most part, it's just revving all your Aspire packages. What a shock, right? The other thing that it does do that most of the time gets missed, right, is it actually goes and updates the MS Build SDK that's being used as well, which is really convenient. I do want to do update self stable. So it's 13.1.1 is the one that it wants. And so I just want to go in here and I want to rev this guy here to match. That way it comes in there and we pick all of that up. And then we'll stage all of those. I really just want to see the thing go, first of all, because I would really, 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 really like to get this thing actually back into my template, because at some point I'm going to torch this repository. I'll terraform destroy all the things, torch the repository, put this back in my template, regen the template, and then stand a whole new one up from scratch, just because I want to see it work from zero. And I'll probably pick a slightly different name just to make sure I don't hit any weird naming collisions. See, it installs the Playwright browsers. It does all the things. It is so... I like this template. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy, and I want to build apps with it. I have been contemplating going through and putting in a potential Aspire backend for like some of my thick client templates, like my WPF one, it feels like something that I might want, where it's kind of unusual to build a desktop app that has no backend, but I mean, a lot of tools type things do have that situation. But it feels like it might be nice to have an optional thing on my Aspire template or even on my WPF template. I guess it depends on which way you want to go. Feels like something more to put on the Aspire one of, hey, give me a front end app, but it's going to be, rather than React, I want my front end to be WPF, right? It doesn't even have to be web. Because the only interesting thing that happens there is then the generation of being able to build the integration between those two things, which feels a little bit better. Okay. And then I want to see database work perfectly, flawlessly. Do the login, deploy the database. I just want to see them all work. I just want to see it all work. Oh, I realized that's something else I think I messed up on. What did I set the retention policy on those EF bundles? See, I didn't set the retention day low enough. I need the retention policy to be low. It really needs to be low. Oh. Directory command, huh? What did I do wrong? Okay. Give me my Ubuntu instance real quick. Let's go test these commands. Okay, so I know what my string looks like. So that's what I'm getting from the output. So I know that. Let's go here and let's find the command that's being executed. So it's going to be connection string equals quote and then paste the other thing. All right, so it's going to be that. It's fine. Oh. Directory command not found. That is so dumb. Because it's the same problem. It's the same problem. I think we can get away with this if we cheat a little bit. I think we can get away with this if we go back here, because the escaping rules in PowerShell are dumb. But if we do this with a single quote, trying to remember the order of operations here. Because if you single quote it, I believe that works around it. Okay. Stage, auto, and send it. Okay. That'll go. Okay. That should get that off and running. And yeah, okay. So backend's back to working. Great. Just the database deployment that's not. Trying to decide if I want that deployed database to come first and intentionally slow down this whole update or not. I think the answer is no. Because at the end of the day, anybody who wants to do this for a full like CI/CD probably needs to spend some time thinking about the right way to deploy their stuff out. I think that's probably better.
Yeah, I think that's probably better. Okay, so we'll let that guy. That guy should. Sorry, what? I'm not crazy, right? Somebody else saw that too. My build times counted down instead of up. Something lost its mind. Something lost its mind. Maybe a clock sync or something happened. Okay, so we'll let that guy go for a minute. Okay, what else is on my list for getting this thing ready to go? If that deploys out, the database changes. That has, I think that's pretty close to what I would expect. Right, there's an event hub here. I think the other changes were going to potentially be around the infrastructure side of the fence, because at some point I want this to be able to support 2 apps without needing to deploy completely new infrastructure every time. And specifically the stuff that's shared in here, like the container registry, I think I want to be able to leverage that. So let's maybe clean this up a little bit. Let's see. And adjust as needed for your project. So I think what we're going to do here is we're going to go environment, but I think what I want to do is actually take this guy here, right, and put this up here, because this should probably be something slightly different. Let's see, local environment. That goes there. Did it not change? Here we go. Okay, so that passes in there. Location passes through. Let's see. Do you know of any WPF documentation showing the order of events when a control loses gains focus? Not documentation, though. What I will often do is I will leverage Snoop. It's not perfect because you basically have to go through and turn it on, but I'll show you. Let's see. Let's see. That's a WPF app. Whoop. Come on. Go get it. What? Connect? Why are you fighting me? Let's see. I don't know why it's not grabbing that one. Let me grab one of my own apps. Come on. Launch. There we go. All right. So right. So what I will often do is I will leverage Snoop here, and if you go into the change tracked events, you can effectively go through and enable all of the events that you might be interested in getting, because most of the time it's going to be these ones here. The one thing that you can guarantee that I don't know any exceptions to this is the tunneling versus bubbling events, right? So when like you go to click on an element, right, the Windows itself sends a WinProc message about, say, mouse down. That starts at the root level window and tunnels from the window, and it walks down your visual tree until it gets to the individual element underneath your cursor, right? And those are the events that are all prefixed with preview. So those are tunneling because they're tunneling down, right? When it gets to the element itself, or the one that's going to handle it, it then bubbles back up, right? And those are usually the events that don't have the word preview in them. So, for example, things that are on all of these down here, preview key down is your tunneling event, key down is your bubbling event back up. And not all events have direct preview, not bubbling, tunneling pairs. Most of them do, not all of them. Because some of them are like a combination, like DoubleClick isn't one that I believe has a correlating. Oh, no, I lied. DoubleClick does have a preview event on it. Click doesn't. So a handful of these ones where the control itself might receive an event or be in a particular state, and therefore it will bubble an event back up. Those ones are going to be are typically going to be just individual without a tunneling event down to them. So that's not too terribly uncommon to see things like, or like text change, I think on a text box is another example where text changed, right? So the tunneling event coming down to it is going to be like the key down event, but then the bubbling event will be the text change of the text coming all the way back up, if that helps it. But I'm not aware of any docs that show exactly the order of what you expect to see going through it. Let's see. I'm still trying to figure out how to restore the sort order of the data grid when it loses and gains focus. Oh, right. Because that moves around on you. Got it. Yeah, I would potentially tell you to, of the events that you're interested in, check the boxes here and then watch what you see them going through. And you'll the other one to note is which control is handling the event, because typically the event is being fired, but on the event args, most event args have a handled bool on them. And if a control, say on a tunneling event, a control halfway down sets the handled flag to true, even though the event does tunnel down to the target control, it won't typically raise the event with the normal plus equals on the control. You end up having to do, let's see, WPF for handled events. There is a class little handle. This guy, I believe, is what it is. Preview, instance clouded. This guy. You end up having to register for the event with this add handler method. And you have to set the bool to true, explicitly saying, hey, don't, because once a event is marked as handled, it won't raise the regular C# event, like the plus equals one on its own. It requires you to explicitly say, oh, by the way, no, that preview key down event that the text box already handled, yeah, let me see it too. And so you may be also getting bit by controls potentially marking the event as handled, and if you're just using the plus equals, you may not be seeing it. Snoop will show you the whole tree, but it will, like, for example, let me just grab, maybe mouse over will be a, or how about mouse down? All right, so if I do that, then I come over here and I click on something, right? So the key thing here is this guy then fired a whole bunch of events, but you'll note on each of these guys here, it shows you who actually handled the event. Where is the mouse down? Yeah. So you can see mouse down on text block handled by button. So it walks down through the visual tree, and then as soon as button marks it as handled, it still goes and works its way through the visual tree. It's just that all of these controls aren't going to actually see it because it's now been handled. But if you were inside the button, right, because you can see button is here at level 76, right? But all of the things that are inside of the button's template, they aren't necessarily handling the mouse down event. So even though the mouse down event initially started on a text block, right, in case you care, like, here's the thingy I clicked on, right? So this is one big massive button with a lot of context in it. Even though that text block isn't handling it, that event bubbles up until it reaches the button, and the button goes, oh, mouse down, that's something I handle. So it sets the thing as handled. The event still continues to propagate all the way through each of these because it's a bubbling event. But anything that just registered for, if something was on this grid and went plus equals mouse down, they wouldn't receive that, right? You have to specifically ask for them, the handled events if you want to get them. So if you are interested, relevant links coming at you. So that one and that one are the key ones. So if you aren't seeing the events that so one, make sure that the events are actually occurring. And then if you aren't getting them in your code, check to see if they're already flagged as handled. Because that is oftentimes a, yeah, thank you. Starts to make sense. Yeah, it is kind of obnoxious dealing with events in WPF, because individual controls can kind of do whatever they want. Now, the built-in controls behave in a fairly sane manner, or at least a consistent manner. But it is very easy to get yourself bit by those. Ooh. It deployed a database. We have databases. Woohoo! Okay. I'm a little confused. That is not the command I expect. Huh? I'm a little confused here that, I mean, I'm glad that this works. I'm just confused as to how I'm getting this error here. How am I getting this error down here? Oh, connection string database, not. Oh. Okay, I know what's going on. I was like, we compiled that in. Okay, so what is happening is when we built up the EF bundle, we have a separate startup project that is up here that contains our DB context factory. This guy here, among other things, calls add database, which is important because add database determines where the connection string comes from. Well, it's expecting the connection string to come in through the I configuration underneath connection strings __ database, right? Or otherwise, right? Well, of the host builder, the environment variable configuration source is probably the easiest one to provide it. So we just need to make sure that we have that appropriately set. So even though we pass it here as -- connection, we might need to set this up as an environment variable as well. So I think the easiest thing, now that this guy is PowerShell, let's go here. So I think the easiest thing is going to be, it feels so weird having to do this. It's basic, because we have to pass it in two different places. It's kind of obnoxious. It needs one for creation, and then once it creates the DB context, it's going to feed in a second one for this connection. I actually wonder if we need to do the -- connection. I wonder if we actually need this. We're going to whack it just to see. So let's see. It's connection strings, and I think it was database was the one that it was looking for. Just want to make sure I get the right connection string. Database key, database. Yeah. Connection strings. I don't really like the fact that this lives out here and not anywhere else, but that should work. Sets the environment variable. We're off to the races. The other thing that we can do is inside of our Aspire host, we can double check to make sure that that matches for the environment variable. It should. Because when you link resources together in your app host, so for example, down here on my backend where I go with dependency, right? So this with dependency is my own method, but it's just a helper around wait for and with reference. So if I look at the backend, once it goes to start, once it actually starts up, come on, go gadget database. We'll just double check it on here to make sure that it has the right environment variable on it. But I'm fairly confident. There you go. Start up. Get yourself a going. Get yourself a going. There you go. Okay, so if we go here, we can look at the resource. We can come down here and we can go references, connection strings, double underscore database. That is where it goes. So under this guy down here, I realize I've just literally switched IDEs back and forth. Connection strings underscore database. We're just going to copy and paste to make sure it works. But I think if I do it this way, I won't need to specify the -- connection. We're going to send it. We might have to duplicate it because it might need it for both the yeah, we're going to do that too. It might need one for instantiation and one for execution. But I'm kind of hoping that if we can use the environment variable for the configuration of it, it'll just work. Kind of my hope. Okay, so we'll let that guy go and then back over to the infrastructure side of the fence. So the one thing I would love to have this thing support is the ability to use existing resources. And maybe I need to just wait until I get to my other one. Because this whole module is like when I get to doing my second app with this template, I'm not going to want to have this guy as the shared one. Like I'm going to want to reuse the same resource group. I'm going to want to reuse the same one down here. So it's going to end up being a data source in those cases. Maybe that's okay that these things are like that. It's probably fine. It's probably fine. Let's see. We don't need run migrations on startup anymore. That we absolutely do not need. There's our database connection string for the back end. There's that one there. Let's do Terraform FMT cursive. There we go. Format all the things in. That goes better. I think that's okay then. I'm sure I'm gonna want to change this as soon as I build something with it. I'm gonna want to change it, but I think this will be okay. I think this will be okay. This does go through. It does. There is one really wacky bit of code in here. Is for the database itself. It goes full crazy mode. Right. So this is one thing that you may want to consider splitting if you end up using this on a production-y based thing, is oftentimes having DDL admin on your app is a bad idea. Like your app is probably not what you want running with DDL admin. It's actually probably whatever's running the EF migration bundle that you want it to have. But your app generally you just want reader writer, right? Very simple. But you'll note it does do some really funky stuff around being able to execute SQL commands. And all of this is to be, so
it goes through, it creates some firewall rules into the, so it punches a hole into the firewall of the SQL Server. It then goes through and spins up all of the relevant users inside of the database so that you can do the AD auth against it. It then goes as far as it cleans up the firewall rules and does the last exit code. So it's fairly complex, obnoxious, but it means that once you have the infrastructure stood up, you don't then need to go remote into the database and like add users in and all kinds of other stuff, right? Again, my goal is an F5 style launch and send it. I'm going to stage this, put this in. I want to get, Dependabot. That was one of the other ones I wanted to get in and added to this. Let me go and grab that out of my other repo. So here under my templates, I could probably just grab the one off my WPF app, I think. I think I can grab this one. It's probably pretty close. This is close. I don't think I have one with NPM in it yet, though. Like, that's fundamentally the problem. Is I don't think, because I'm going to need to change a little bit of this. Let's see. Can I just drag drop this sucker in? There we go. Okay, so, and I want to, this group's GitHub actions. I think I want to do the same thing here. In fact, I probably want to add that to my WPF one. And then I want NPM. Yeah, so let's come down here. Okay. Okay, look for package JSON in the root directory. That's fine. But that's not where it's going to be. It's going to be down a level. So I want this to actually be React app.web. Clear that out. Schedule interval weekly. We don't want it spamming me. And then I want this. And I want this guy to go here. And I want this guy to go here. Okay, so that should get me pretty close to what I want for a Dependabot setup. That looks good there. Yeah. I'm going to put you at a 3 now. I believe that is the latest one. .net -- list Ks. Oh, that's not how you spell it. Hyphen. Sure, my big head is in the way. It doesn't look right. I'm gonna leave this back. Because it'll roll forward. I believe 300 released. That's okay. Let's get Dependabot out there because that guy is gonna fire and probably make a mess of the repo real quick. The other thing that I do have a bit of a problem on my templates repository is I can't run Dependabot on my own templates repository because Dependabot is not hip to extra conditions and otherwise inside of like my directory packages props. And so it just falls over and doesn't know how to update them properly. So it's like, gah. Okay, so we'll leverage that. That will get me to there. Okay, and what I expect to see right after pushing this is Dependabot to kick off and make a whole mess of stuff. Because as soon as that goes in, yeah, there we go. Okay, so
There's the main build. We'll cancel that because that's not going to have anything of consequence in it. And then NuGet, npm, GitHub Actions. And so I expect to see this guy, one, find all the things. And I know there's plenty of stuff that's out of date. So if it finds nothing, I'll know it's broken. Okay, so this guy goes here. It's going too fast. I can't even read it. I'm going to assume it's finding things. Because what I would expect to see is a whole bunch of Dependabot PRs opening up. There we go. So the GitHub Actions one is firing. It's found a whole bunch of updates to my GitHub Actions. Great. That means it did exactly what I expected to do. And then more importantly, what I'm expecting is that my auto merge triggers and fires on these and just merges them all in, so that this app just stays up to date. Again, if people don't like Dependabot, just delete the file and you don't have to have it. Okay, so that gets me into there. I think am I done? I think I might be done. At least done with the template side. The next step is going to be actually building some apps. I've got an app that I've promised my wife for I think 6 months at this point. That I might just have to go build her now. Now that I have spent so many hours putting together a pointless app, I now have a real template that's actually going to go and run. So while that thinks about its life and what it's done, I'm gonna make the sweeping assumption that it's about to succeed, and I'm gonna go grab it and I'm gonna move it into my template. So I think, let's see, this is going to go Aspire, React app. So that all goes there. And then I'm going to grab my, where's my, okay, so here is all the details. So I obviously don't want to grab the Git folder, and I don't want the VS folder, and I don't want test results. I guess I got to clean some of this up. Let me close down Visual Studio. And we'll close down VS Code so we don't get bit by any of those. And so step one, we're going to go get clean DFX to torch everything that's not in source control, because I don't want to copy in any of those. That'll get me most of the way clean. And then I'm going to take the Git folder out, and then I think I'm just going to blind copy over the top of everything. I think I do delete. Oh, that's apparently going to take a moment. I think I'm going to delete and paste just so that renamed files, I don't end up with dupes. That way it's a clean copy from all of these. Because there's nothing in... Oh, did I have a... Well, we'll get to see the deltas here in a minute. We'll get to see the deltas because Git will do that for me. Right? Most things should probably be the same. Okay, so Git, tell me what are the changes in my templates repository now. There should be quite a few because I spent a while making quite a bit of changes. So I do expect there to be some things. And we clearly need to rebase. So that's fine. We'll accept that. And now I'm very interested in everything that is in here. So tools change, good. Git attributes, good. Let's see, Dependabot, good. Just make sure the Dependabot is continuing to do its due diligence. So this guy failed to do something. What did you fail on? Build and deploy. So we need to deal with that guy here in a moment. So something's wrong there. The actions one. Are you still just chugging? Yeah, you're just chugging. Okay. Great. Okay, so that should get all the way through there. And we'll deal with the NPM ones here in a moment. Because we might, depending on how that works out, we might have to copy in the packages stuff. This is the change I was worried about. I accidentally deleted my template.json. I want to keep this. Yes. Discard. Okay, so that is good. I'm just going to blindly take everything in infra because just about guarantee it's exactly what I want. That's fine. That's fine because we made a ton of changes throughout this whole thing. Okay, so this is setting up GitHub with OIDC. Why is my... What is going on? Why is it dropping my thing off? Angry Cart. We are working on a .NET template for a .NET Aspire app. So we can show the running app. We got it. So it's got this is we'll call it highly opinionated .NET based application, but it has a React front end, ASP.NET Core backend, MS SQL, SignalR, all kinds of fancy stuffs in it. But if anybody wants to see it, this is my... I mean, we're going to tear it down in a little bit, but if anybody wants to play, there's the running application. I can log in, test@email.com. As you can see, I'm just going to move this off the side real quick while I log in. Because it does not actually do anything fancy. It's taking a hot moment to log in, but it should go through. I'm guessing the back end went to sleep. Because the container app that's actually playing back end for it is allowed to scale to 0 so that it's cheap. So this is getting a little humbling if this takes forever to log in. Go. Launch. Do the needful. Might have to go check our activity log if this is going to take this long. Show me the replica. You're up and running. That looks like it's running. Good evening, DeCounto. So if you are interested in the template, we are dumping it into my .NET template. It's currently we're working on getting it merged, so it's not there yet, but it will be. Can you take a look at my app? Well, let's take a look. Cloud Reactivity Framework. Let's see, JSX to automate durable workflows, declare what should exist, runtime reconcile the difference. Visit. Interesting. Let's take a look at docs. npm init. Bundler. Yeah, where to store state. Oh, this is interesting. What was the motivation? The start, bro. Great work. Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, star. Hey, no, I absolutely appreciate it. Like, I will say this: these .NET templates are
They are heavily opinionated in what I think is best. So for what it's worth, they're the way I like to start my applications. So those MD files are outdated. Okay. So, ooh, that's kind of cool. Oh wow. Reactive primitives, flow control. Dang. Okay. That's pretty cool. Um, create effect. Interesting. This is kind of cool. Value maintain computations, ownership. So what was your motivation for building this? Just out of curiosity. Let's see. Maybe you should see some components here. You can better idea of understanding practices. And deploy AWS. I assume this is the components in here for it. Let's go here maybe. Start with app TSX. Doo-doo. Oh, nice. So then where does it end up? And read like a solid JavaScript app. Okay. But this guy, so sorry, just going through and making sure I'm tracking this. The TypeScript. Create your entry point. Yeah, with a memory implementation and a stack name. Okay. So in this case, where does the memory then get created inside of here? Yeah, this is pretty cool. Interesting. This absolutely looks like something that might be useful to me. Work on a GUI lib and Zig. Oh, cool. Very cool. No, this where'd the other one go? Let me grab. I want to grab this guy here. No, I'll start this. I'm gonna put this over on my. I'll have to go through that a little closer. But thank you for sharing. That is a very cool looking library. I may end up needing to do that. Because like I said, at some point I need to actually go through and actually build out the apps that I owe my wife for all of this stuff. There we go. It finally launched. I'm guessing my startup time just needs a little bit of work on that. But this is like the app in question here. This is a very simplistic. It's just a Q&A type room application, right? Like that's like it's meant as a demo application, but it's just complicated enough to be interesting, but hopefully simple enough that everyone can understand, right? There's a management side of a Q&A room, like, if somebody's giving a talk or whatever. And then there's a public side where people can go and they type in their name, they ask a question. The management side then gets to, approve or doing it. No guest login. I know. Well, so here's the thing. You don't actually need to log in if you want to go straight. So if you have a link straight into a room, you can you don't need to log in, right? So like the public room link here, Like I can just pop an incognito browser open and I can come straight in and then, right, I can do this. My name will be, oh, I did Bob last time. We'll be Joe today. What app should we build next, right? Submit question, right? And so the person managing the room then sees the incoming questions, can decide no guest login. I use Arch, by the way. See, people found the link. And then, like, for example, if the admin goes, yeah, we're not showing that question, delete, right? Like, we do not want that going up. But then it's like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and approve the questions, and then we can come in here, and if somebody's going to go through and ask a question, we'll go ahead and mark one as the current one being answered, right? And we can clear it, and we can go, okay, obviously, we know that C# is the best programming language, clearly. So we'll mark that one as answered, right? And then clear the current. And so it's again, just complicated enough to be interesting beyond a lot of like real simple demo-y type applications. Like this thing theoretically could serve a purpose. Is it a complicated app? No, because it's meant to be a template app where in theory you probably throw away the guts of this, but the number of apps that I have built in the last year that kind of all follow this similar structure: ASP.NET Core Backend, SQL Server, SignalR. It's technically usually been Vue on the front end, but I decided React for being able to interact with and having that kind of setup. I'm getting sick and tired of rebuilding all this from scratch every time I want one of these apps. I'm going to make a template. So that was the motivation. Is I got going on it, and then I owed my wife a explanation for an app that she wanted, and there you go. So it's very simple. You only need to sign up and make an account if you want to actually create a room, and secretly, like there's no management really. Like it's just the built-in ASP.NET Core identity stuff. So there's a users table in the database. The email verification just auto does it, right? Like as soon as you sign in, it just automatically sets your emails verified. There's no like validation of any of that crap. So, and then I will warn you, at some point, this whole React app repo that we've been playing in tonight, like this repo is getting torn down. And the infrastructure is going to get whacked. So it's like, people can have fun. I'm going to tear it down anyway. But the goal is to then have a .NET template that anybody can .NET new, and then they can run the same Terraform. They can stand the app up, and they can put it behind whatever URL they want. And then it makes it a little more interesting for people. Okay, so this one we can stage. At some point, we need to go check out what those NPM issues were. But I want to get this much at least merged in. So service defaults, what did we do here? We had to map the health checks. This is one that bit me. I don't know why. So I get the explanation from the default Aspire stuff that that health checks can, in theory, be a security vulnerability, depending on what you do with them. But I don't understand why they hid them behind the development environment flag. It just didn't, like, I get that you shouldn't accidentally expose stuff with your health checks. It just felt weird, and it ended up breaking on the deployment, because then when you go to deploy, if you have a container app that tries to use the health checks to know for its startup and readiness probes, those don't work. So again, I didn't understand their default. It felt weird to me. So again, my opinion is you whack it. Let's see here. We don't want that. That was AI slop. Let's see here. This was a bunch of UI tests fixing to get the UI tests working properly. Those are going there. Yeah, and again, the whole premise here is I put as much infrastructure in place as what I thought was necessary. So there's UI playwright testing, there's integration testing, there's unit testing. All of the bits are there, and if somebody starts an app with this and you don't want one of those things, just delete it.
it's one of those. It's like I may not use the UI testing on all of my stuff, so let's see. We need that. That goes there. That was just cleaning up the docs there. That's fine. I believe all those changes are still up to date. Let's see, UI test base. This was leveraging all the cool new Aspire stuff for getting the endpoint URLs and standing that up and getting it started. It's fine. We wanted all those changes anyway. Okay, let's app host. What do we do here? Let's see, with environment. Why did we need to do... Oh, because we needed to get the... Okay, right. Right, we needed the Vite server to be happy with that. Okay, that's right. Let's see, that's just updating the SDK. We know that's fine. Let's see, insert headless. Great. Okay, there's that. And let's see, we new GUID that just to clean the tests up so that they stopped colliding with each other, which made life better. Clean up the using statement. Don't care about that. Set the publishing flag. This is one thing that did bite me for people who aren't familiar with this. If you run a .NET publish at the root of your repo against a solution file, any project that is publishable will get published. And if you hypothetically are pushing up to an ACR as part of your .NET publish, you'll end up with a whole bunch of extra repositories in your ACR for your test projects. And I was very confused why I had like 4 different repositories. I'm like, well. Then I looked at them like, oh, they're all my test projects. I'm an idiot. So go turn those suckers off. Let's see. So the get ignore there is fine. What did I put here? Static web app config. I just want to check and see. That's all fine. I don't know that we actually need it. Keep it for now. I may end up whacking it after I test it on a clean repo. Let's see here. Dealing with some warnings. Actually, I don't know that I need to check any of these because I think I want to take all of them blind anyway. And then this one here was just a change for setting up the OIDC. So this is going through and configuring your GitHub repository as well as setting up the needed authentication between them. So for GitHub Actions, you can do OIDC as your authentication out to Azure, but it does require going out and creating federated credentials. Is this app on GitHub? Yes. So if you want to see the app itself, that's the link for where I have applied my template. And we applied it there just as a way of testing the template because the template comes with GitHub Actions and all of that jazz. And so I wanted to make sure all the actions were working. So that repo is volatile. Anybody watching the recording of this, it may not be there. So the actual place it's going to end up is going to be here in my .NET templates repo. But that's the commit we're working on here. Be able to go through. But the other thing I'm realizing I need to document is the prereqs for this, because this template does make the assumption that you have the Azure CLI installed and that you are logged in with it, because it is absolutely going to use that to go and kind of bootstrap your environment and stand up all the needed cloud resources. Okay, so put all that in, great. Okay, Kraken, do your thing. Do your thing. Go write me a reasonable commit message real quick, and then we will rebase this PR because it's getting a little too big. But that's just Avalonia, so that shouldn't be. This is going to be off in a different directory, so there should be no conflicts. Okay. Yeah, looks good. Great. Thank you. And then let's rebase that sucker so I don't have to deal with anything weird. Go, Kraken, go. Never worked on a repo that big like yours. I think repos just grow with time. It is absolutely, it's one of those things where this is one of my bigger templates that I put into this thing, because most of my templates are not that big. They're more, even though a lot of them are solution-y style templates, like I've got a simple console app one, I've got a simple WPF app one, I've got a library one for building NuGet packages, right? This Aspire one is absolutely the big boy in the group right now. And I feel like I've been poking at this since like November. Kind of just like, because I think I started it over Christmas break. Morning, mate, or night, yeah. Late for me, Society Dog. It is a bit after midnight. And I've got about a quarter can of Mountain Dew left in my system. So, but the good news is I think I just got myself to the point where I am happier with where this is at. So from my .NET templates, let's see here. I would like to, well, let's deal with these. Why did the GitHub Actions one fail? That one should have been an easy win. Oh, this guy here. GitHub Actions is not permitted to approve pull requests. Oh. That is because of the default settings inside of my repository. That is probably okay. That is where are those settings? I think there is it in actions? There are yeah. There are, yeah, so this checkbox here is the one that it's complaining about. So this is effectively the checkbox that needs to be enabled for this thing to work properly. So that's fine. So we'll take the actions one, and we can blindly merge this guy because he passed the build. He just didn't pass the auto merge step. So that's fine. That's fine. So that'll get that guy up and running. I'm realizing I probably need to make a quick note about this. So I really don't want all of these things. I just want... Actually, let me just tag. Create tag. So just so I know where I last left off on copy my stuff back. Ultimately I'm gonna just .NET new -F to reapply the template over the top of this and see what deltas show up. But yeah. See, trying out GitHub Copilot instead of Grok, and wow, it became nice now. They must have put in so much work in that. The agent mode is just wild. Yeah. And what is your, I guess, what entry point into the GitHub Copilot? Right? So agent mode, there's, I think, at least a couple different ways to get at it. I mean, there's obviously the stuff in the browser underneath agents. You can assign issues and go that route. I oftentimes will leverage so inside of VS Code, you can actually, when you do the delegation out to cloud, that'll also be a Angry Car, have a good one. Thanks for dropping in. If you do a shell out to cloud, that also will kick off your coding agent because that's just sending it up that way. So, and depending on what you're doing, like my default setting is going to be like Opus or Sonnet is
Like if I want my agent to actually like not be an idiot, those are my go-tos. Though sometimes I will absolutely use a dumb agent when I don't want it to think. Sometimes where it's like, no, just do what I tell you. Don't think at all. Just do exactly this and nothing else. Yeah, then I drop into the cheap ones. Opus 4.6. Yeah, yeah, that is definitely my teams at work like this. The Opus Sonnets are the ones where they get the most value out of them. I will say the Opus 4.6 fast mode, like, oh boy, that's expensive, boy. Like it's fast, but you want to burn some tokens? Premium requests. That'll burn some premium requests. Absolutely, will burn some premium requests. Let's see. Bump the GitHub Actions group. Wait a minute. This is the .NET one. I assume this is going to be, as long as this is the same failure. Yeah, same failure there. I just have the regular subscription for it. Yeah, I think that's actually all I have because I assumed that the GitHub Pro, is that the kind of the first paid tier? Though I do also have, my work will also pay for a subscription if I ever need it as well. So I technically have two ways of getting one. It's just kind of obnoxious with the way they do their billing. You can only have one billing account selected, and so you have to go in and like change the drop down every time you want to switch between them, which is better than what it used to be. It used to be you just couldn't, and that sucked. But they made it slightly better by giving you that drop down, which is much better. Okay, so what exactly went wrong here? So let's see. Could not resolve. ESLint. Oh boy. Oh. I think I had a colleague run into this problem and he was messaging me about it. Cuz I think that was, yes, there was some this is ringing bells. But the problem is, I think this was either earlier today or yesterday, and that would require me to be able to think that far back. Might have to ask him about this tomorrow, because I think he ran into this exact problem. Yeah, but it will almost do all the coding and testing, and you just have to run and see if it works. I almost haven't touched the coding. Yeah, I will say, do be a little careful with it. There's a few tricks that that people have started doing of like checking your prompts in as markdown files into the repository. That way there's kind of a living record of the work that's been done. Because at some point you blow through your context window and it has to kind of like, every time you start a new chat session, it's like a brand new employee, first time seeing the code base, like, ooh, what's this, right? And so the more you can give it that information, the better. I will say there is... so to be clear, I absolutely leverage Copilot to get stuff done. Though I do find myself often, if I care about the quality and maintainability of the code, it tends to build stuff that doesn't feel very maintainable long term. And so I do end up cleaning up a bunch of stuff too. So with that said, it can absolutely generate stuff, especially if you're building something net new. It's really good at net new stuff. It loves it. And you can build out quite a few apps, especially if you get something and get like a couple patterns going and it starts to like, it likes patterns. And so it will duplicate what it finds. And so if it sees, oh, this is the way we're doing things. Yeah, it goes to town. So like even in my day job, we're building out some UI tests right now. And after we did the first, I don't know, 3 or 4, we turned Copilot loose on it, and it absolutely just ripped through a ton of them and went, ooh, I see the pattern. Let me replicate that. Ooh, let me go and figure out, what your DOM looks like, and I'll build out the appropriate selectors. And it did a lot of that because it was real pattern heavy. Like there's certain tasks that AI agents absolutely just eat for breakfast. They rip right through them. Yeah. What I find is I just ask for a small bit at a time, because I found if you ask too much, you'll just end up and mixing stuff up. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think the way that I've seen it work is the bigger the task, the bigger the prompt needs to be, right? The more detail that needs to go. A colleague of mine put it very eloquently of like, English is inherently imprecise. And so even like talking to another human, I can say something and think that I've been perfectly clear, and then realize later, oh, that wasn't perfectly clear. AI just ramps that up to 100 of, oh yeah, oops, you just made an assumption because I wasn't real specific about what I wanted. And so I think oftentimes if it's a big task that needs to be done, it's like you have to have a big prompt. If you do leverage, because some of them, you'll see like the planning mode or similar. What we've often found as well is that leveraging a smarter model to make the plan and then a dumber one to execute it works really well. Do you have a sample of prompts you add to a .NET project? So I'm planning on putting some into my. Let me look. I think I have. I think this one has some. Just checking it real quick before I pull it out. So this one here is one that I've put various versions of into into different projects. This is just a simple prompt file. It really should be called update dependencies. And the key thing here is this prompt file I will often execute from inside of Visual Studio. I don't think, let me go and look real quick. Isn't it? I think it's just github.com/MCP. I don't know that the NuGet MCP server has been added here yet. Yeah, it hasn't. So NuGet has an MCP server, and it hasn't been added to the GitHub one yet. But it comes pre-bundled into Visual Studio, or you can manually add it. And the key thing here is that the MCP tool comes with one really, really key tool. This guy, the NuGet solver. This is the whole look at my packages, figure out the min-max versions, actually like deal with the dependencies rather than just going out to NuGet and saying, hey, what's latest? Okay, I'll install that, right? Most of the time that works, but not always, especially as you start getting a lot of packages. So it's the fact that this thing comes with the NuGet solver, when you tell it to update, it'll actually look at all of your stuff, solve for what the updates are supposed to be, and then do it all. The other key thing that I put in here on mine, and I don't think this is in a public repository yet, so I'll have to go through and do it. But things like making gotta do this without clicking, update all of the .NET local tools as well, right? Because like .NET EF as a local tool on my repository, you need to keep the local tool in sync with the NuGet package because it doesn't quite work. Like most of the time it works just fine, but you'll start getting warnings if those two get out of sync. And so quite often it's easy to rev your NuGet package because that's what the tooling does. But this thing gets left off. So it's a handful of things here. And on some projects, I've also added in things about doing like the NPM packages and all of that stuff, because most of the time it can handle revving all of those somewhat intelligently. The other thing I would say, on here, there are a handful of what I will deem as like kind of critical MCP servers, because the biggest limitation I see with a lot of the AI agents is getting them the right context. Because most of the time they can figure things out if they can get the information, but they're really dumb about getting the information, right? So context 7, I absolutely love. Um, because it brings in docs and is updated from a lot of open source projects and otherwise, and especially if you're like revving packages, this is absolute gold, especially to make sure that the agent knows about like updated APIs and all kinds of stuff. This guy is critical. The GitHub or Azure DevOps MCP, depending on where things are being hosted, is really critical. If you're doing anything in .NET, the Microsoft Learn one is another good one, just like the Context 7 one. It can help it with updated APIs and docs, but Microsoft Learn also has like samples and other things. So you'll start to get better information there about what it should actually go through and do. And then the rest of these, I would say, are very dependent upon like either where you're hosting your stuff or what you're using, right? Stripe, Nuxt, any of these other ones. Most bigger library things probably have something. How do you use those in Visual Studio, and how do you get VS Copilot to pay attention to these prompts? Great question. So I will show it to you in both. So for example, so this is VS 2026. We'll open it up. And actually that was actually, I mean, that was a run of the NuGet package one where it did all the work. But if I were to do a new one here, so there's a couple ways to go about it. You can come in here and directly, where did it go? Did they drop it out? Choose a prompt. Oh, dang it. There used to be a, okay, that's dumb. Pound prompt. There we go. So pound prompt, and then that guy there effectively brings it in as context, and then usually you put something along the lines of follow the directions in, and then you send it, right? Because a prompt file is just basically a pre-canned prompt, as though you were going to type it in, but something that's actually checked in and saved. Let's see here. If I do the same thing, I got my stuff. I got to find the right tab. Let's do this here in code as well. If I go VS Code and pop this sucker, this guy here, I believe, is slightly different, where you will actually get the. Boy, am I crazy? I could have sworn there was extra that prompts were actually in here, unless they've hidden them from me. I could have sworn prompts were in here, but I believe it's the same situation here. Is prompt, and then it knows about the individual ones for all the directions and then the NuGet update one. The other ones to be aware of, and actually I should show off, let's see, that's my incognito browser. Let's go to the non-incognito browser. GitHub, awesome Copilot. This repository here, if you haven't come across it yet, this one is a whole bunch of pre-canned markdown files, for lack of better words, for custom agents, instruction files, prompt files, skills, and otherwise, that you can kind of peruse. Some of these you can just bring in as is, and they will work great. Oftentimes, I will copy them in and use them more as inspiration for what I am looking to do inside of mine, just as a way of doing it. Do keep an eye on them, though. The specification of what Copilot looks for inside of the markdown files, I have occasionally run into issues where some of them are old and newer Copilots aren't as hip to back compat in all cases. So just be aware of that. Like the top level metadata at the top, because I think we look at the raw based one. It's usually, come on, open. It's usually this little bit up at the top where you occasionally run into problems where things aren't lining up properly. All right, so those ones there. Let's see. The MCP recursive ones, is that for the ones you showed us to use? So not quite. The MCP prompt file. So an MCP server can provide a number of things to your agent. The most valuable one that they provide is tools, because tools are effectively then just functions that can be used by your agent to go and accomplish a task. And one of the other things that they can provide is prompts. So if somebody builds an MCP server, that server can serve up a list of prompts. Think of it as just serving up those same markdown files right down to your agent as, hey, these are some pre-canned prompts that you might want to do, right? It would not be uncommon to imagine, say, Stripe maybe doing some pre-canned prompts for saying, hey, here's how you upgrade to the latest version, right? Like, I can write up all of those prompts because I know what changed and provide that extra guidance to the agent. So having those extra prompts around as well. It's not something I see a lot of MCP servers leveraging right now. The other thing that an MCP server can provide is a external resource. Again, not super common in a lot of these. Most of the MCP servers that are being built right now are very tool heavy focused, and that's most of where you'll see those things come in. But again, I think that's the big thing with a lot of the agentic development stuff, is trying to make sure that you've given your agent enough context to do the right thing. Because it's very easy for it to not know enough context. Like, I gave one of my agents a task the other day, and admittedly, it was a little tongue-in-cheek. I had basically pointed it at a chat that me and some colleagues were having and said, hey, go implement this feature. Didn't tell it about the repository, didn't give it any more context than that. And it figured out the name of the repository. Then, because I had given it the appropriate MCP servers, it found the repository. And rather than cloning it, it decided, you know what? I can just open a pull request and edit the files remotely. So it didn't really... it didn't work, at least didn't work correctly, but it did get a good chunk of the way there. I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. Yeah, I intentionally didn't prompt you well because I kind of just wanted to see what you would do if I gave you nothing, right? Let's see, I might have understood wrong. I thought it was like extra know-how for the agent when you're just coding something. So there's a couple things there. Let's see, GitHub, Copilot. Let's just, I just want the docs. There's several things, and they are layered. So there is coding aid, prompting, prompt engineering. No. I am looking for the instruction files. This will work. This is probably where we're going. So there's multiple kind of layers of areas where things can end up being. Let's see. Deadline is 3/1. Subscribe here. Oh, cool. So with Copilot, most of the inputs to it usually come in the form of markdown files. You have prompt files, which are just kind of pre-canned prompts, things that you've saved because you want to rerun those same prompts in the future. Again, things like update my NuGet packages, because I'm going to want to run that multiple times in the future, right? Saved it as a prompt. It's some singular instruction-y thing that I want to redo over and over. There are instruction files, which are also markdown files, and instruction files can be matched based upon like file globbing patterns. So an instruction file you can put in and say, hey, this applies to all, .cs files. Go through and, here's my naming conventions that I want to apply for CS files or those types of things. You'll also see there's kind of a top level-y one called Copilot Instructions MD. Copilot really likes to prompt you to add one to your repository if you don't have one, where it just kind of describes everything about your repository, which is kind of a cool way of going through and setting it up. Because you can see here, there's the Copilot instructions, and then there's anything that ends with .instructions.md. And all of these instruction files, the only thing that makes these things mildly special is this kind of metadata at the top where, like in this case, this instruction file is just all Python files, right? And we're going to add naming conventions and coding styles and things about Python files that we want specific to us, right? So if you have something that kind of matches that, it goes here. The other thing, and I think it calls it out inside of here, does it match it? It doesn't have it referenced in here. There is another file called agents MD that you will see people use quite a bit. It is very similar to instruction files in that it automatically gets picked up and added into your context window, but agents MD works at a directory level. So you can put it, you'll see oftentimes people will put it in the root of their repository. Basically, they say, okay, this is my agents MD for, the overarching bit of this project. And then maybe I put another agents MD inside of my test folder. And this is going to have some extra instructions about how I do testing, right? Things like that. Agents MD is a little more non-vendor lock-in-y. Because it's kind of like there's an arms race with AI where everybody's trying to be the one setting standards and nobody wants to play with everyone else. But Agents MD has kind of been one that a lot of the popular ones will all agree, they've all kind of agreed, okay, yes, we'll all look for this file. So that one's a little bit nicer, especially if you've got people coming from different agentic solutions. Again, it's similar to the instructions files, except for the Copilot instruction files can be directory and like file extensions, file globbing based, whereas an agents MD can be directory based. So similar purpose, similar targeting thing, little bit different, right? The other one is, so that's instruction files, prompt files, and then custom agents is the other big one. About custom agents. So this is yet one more, and so if you want examples of these, that awesome Copilot repository has a bunch of these in there, right? So a custom agent is once again more markdown, but a custom agent is one where it can come in with a name and a description, and think of this as you are wanting to basically have some prompt because you want the agent to actually run with some special documentation, because this markdown that goes with the custom agent isn't tied to a directory. It isn't tied to anything else. What it does is inside of VS Code, like this drop down here, you will, no, I think it's here now. I think if I remember right, they show up right down here. They keep moving, they keep changing their UI and it's bothering. No, I'm wrong. Because that's a custom agent there, right? I've built one for doing my timesheet for work because I'm that lazy. Yes, I do have a custom agent for doing my timesheet. With a custom agent, in this case, for example, it has extra instructions in it about, hey, where are the source information to go and get information for my timesheet? How do you fill out timesheet entries? How should the descriptions be formatted? I've bundled all of that information into this custom agent so that when I select it, I can now start having a chat with that custom agent, but now it's going to have all of that extra information about timesheets. So if I say, hey, what days in the last pay period are still missing timesheet entries from me? It now understands, oh, okay, I know how you guys do pay periods. I know where to go and look for timesheet entries. The limiting thing here can also be given MCP servers and tools to be able to act on. So you can say, hey, this custom agent is going to have access to this MCP server, right? Maybe you have a custom agent for doing UI testing, and so you pre-can it and say, here's all the Playwright tools. I want you to use Playwright to be able to, go inspect my app and do this, that, and the other. Right. So the setup underneath all of these, the nice part is you don't have to think because there's only one choice, right? So inside of your repository, the way the awesome Copilot repository is set up is these folders go inside of the .github folder inside of yours. So again, they've got a whole bunch of custom agents, right? C# expert agent, right? So they've coded it in with a whole bunch of rules around what's good, what's bad, how should you do things. And in some cases, these things really help. In other cases, like especially the Claude models, because they've been trained on enough C#, a lot of these, like the generalized conventions that most people do, tend to be what the agents are going to do anyway, because that was the training data. So they just kind of intrinsically fall into that. But there are a lot of things where like there's so much historical C#, it's very common for agents to maybe write stuff that's back a few versions of C# old, right? Because there's not as much, like the latest version of C# just came out in November. There's not as many examples. And when they were trained, there were definitely no examples of the latest version of C# out there. So saying, hey, by the way, you know, I want to be using this new pattern matching technique. I want to be using insert C# feature here, right? Of building it out. Custom agents give you a way of kind of adding extra context around usually a particular task for what they need to do. That was a lot of stuff. And actually, since you asked, well, or didn't ask, let me look here real quick because I think I might have one more thing for you. Only reason I know so much of this stuff is we ran I ran a bunch of conferences not that long ago where we went over a whole bunch of this stuff. And I am looking to see if I can find it because I believe it was recorded and posted online. And so yeah, so here's a handful of things. I'm gonna spam you real quick, so buckle up. Okay, so my company's YouTube page. And then I'll steer you towards a handful of these things. So a handful of these things that are worth looking at. So the .NET Conf ones are absolutely interesting, though if you're looking for AI-based stuff, the machine learning one is interesting, but that's a little more low level than just Copilot stuff. And then, you know, hey, look, me. If you want to understand how LLMs work, Clayton's talk here, even though it's 6 months old, is very good, especially if people want a primer on, you know, how AI works, because I think that's, people just assume the magical AI box does the things, and I think having a good grasp of there. But if you scroll to the right, just one, the GitHub Global Bootcamp. Now, I will say, this boot camp was put on, I think, the day after custom agents first dropped. So these were like brand spanking new right out the gate. So this is good, but I will also point out this was 7 months ago. So just be aware, when we did this, we were putting it on with what was latest and greatest 7 months ago. So there's been a handful of things that have changed since then. There was one more I was going to point out. If you are interested in MCP stuff, Dan, this is upcoming, right? So this one is forthcoming. So if you are interested in building MCP servers, quick spoiler alert. One, if you go back and I think 3 or 4 streams back from what I've done, I started building an MCP server for XAML test. But my opinion is one of the easiest ways to understand MCP servers is to just build one, and they're really horribly complicated. Please understand that was a ridiculous amount of sarcasm. They're literally just a method, right? Like, you put an attribute on it, and this documentation's even a little bit out of date. Yeah, you put an attribute on it, and you put some description attributes on it, and you're done, and that's it. Then the only interesting part then is, okay, I've built an MCP server. How do I distribute it to other people, right? How do I use it? How does the thing work, right? The simplest option is you bundle it up as a .NET tool and you ship it via NuGet and you're done. That's it. It's no harder than publishing a NuGet package. And then you can have a function that adds in whatever magical thing you want the AI to know how to do. Or more accurately, your MCP tool often provides extra context to the AI that it wouldn't otherwise know how to get easily, right? Maybe it goes through and it's like, what's the best flavor of soda to drink? Obviously, it just hard codes returns Mountain Dew. Great, right? But maybe you want to build something more interesting. But they really are not that complicated to build. And I think once people build one, it gets to be really easy. But again, if you're interested in that, in actually doing it, Dan's been building a bunch of MCP servers. He's been building them for larger enterprises where they are uber paranoid about security and making sure that you lock these suckers down so that they are appropriately secured. Because they don't have to be console apps. They can be remote servers. Like the GitHub MCP is a remote server. If we go and look, I guess technically, I think GitHub runs both ways. Where's their config? Yeah. So they used to have this, and now it's just this, right? And so when your AI agent is talking to the GitHub MCP, it is reaching out to GitHub servers at api.githubcopilot.com, right? It is actually talking to that remote server to request tools get invoked. It's passing data up as the parameters to those functions. And so when using MCP servers, especially if they're remote ones, just like, would you pass data to that remote API? If the answer is you wouldn't pass it to their remote API, you probably shouldn't pass it to their MCP server. The only thing that gets a little scarier is you're not always in direct control of what data is getting passed, right? Your AI agent is going to figure out what it needs to call those functions, and it's going to go, oh, do I have that data? Okay, let me get it, and then pass it up. And so if it can figure it out, it will send the data. And so oftentimes it is worth taking at least a brief look, right, of, like, if you go through and look at the MC, like we can look at the GitHub one, right? We can see the tools that are on all of these things. It's like, okay, like create a branch, right? This tool is gonna, and it doesn't actually, what are the parameters for the create branch tool in the GitHub MCP server, right? And let me make sure I've actually given it that thing so it knows what to do, right? Go look it up. Go fire up your servers, go do your thing, right? Because that's the best part. There is also an MCP inspector that you can use that will like dump the metadata and everything for you. So if you want to see it, that's another way. But you can also usually just ask Copilot what the parameters are, and it'll usually happily dump those things out. Oh yeah, so found the instruction file. Great, because I have one. Do the thing. Find the needful. What exactly is in this instruction file? I don't remember. Oh, I need to update it with the new ones. and then it will go out and think. So yeah, I think it is absolutely worthwhile looking at. I think that's it. Boy, that was a lot. You asked an interesting question, and I got very distracted very quickly. But I think, at least on my other project for that NPM one, I may just pause and ask my coworker tomorrow, because I'm fairly confident he ran into the same issue, and I don't remember how he said he solved it. No, totally fine, Society Dog. I don't mind rabbit trailing. Search for text, create branch. Oh boy, it's already lost its mind. Okay, it's already lost its mind. It's hunting in the wrong spots. But regardless, just be cautious of what MCPs you install. Again, just like, would you use that person's library? Would you use their external API? All of that jazz. If the answer is no, don't use their MCP. Because effectively, you're either letting them run a CLI command on your machine or inside of a Docker container.
Right. Docker desktop also, like,
They've added their own like MCP server hub, where people who have posted MCP servers out to Docker Hub, you can just like click and say, start running this MCP server locally inside my Docker instance, which is great, right? But again, if you wouldn't download that person's Docker image and run it, don't download their MCP server and run it. Yeah, so to add some of those MCPs, I go to GitHub and install, and then Copilot and Visual Studio have them. No, and that's the unfortunate part. So I will show you where they go. There is unfortunately no agreement among people on where MCP servers should live. So everyone agrees that MCP JSON is a happy thing, right? But so in VS Code, there are two levels of MCP JSON. There is the one, and you can see this lives up in my app data roaming user profile. So when you go through to add an MCP server, right? So I think if I click here, right? If I do command standard IO, foo, right? My MCP server, right? It's going to ask me, where do I want to install this? Either in my user profile globally or in my workspace, right? Both of these will be an mcp.json file. They'll both have a identical schema and setup depending on what it is, and they just look like this. There's nothing overly fancy about them, right? There's the name of the server, there's the type, which is probably the most important one, because that tells it whether it's going to be a remote HTTP server or whether it's going to be something that runs over standard IO. And then the other parameters are all around the type, right? If it's standard IO, it's going to need a command with some CLI args. If it's an HTTP one, it's going to need an endpoint, all of that jazz, right? You can see here, I've even got one that's just literally a local exe on my system. That's it, right? Not fancy. And the reason I say no for Visual Studio is even between Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, they can't agree on where that mcp.json goes. So unfortunately, you get to go through and add it in both places, because you will note this mcp.json file is different than the last one. And in the solution, this is also different from the last one. Because you'll note, this is the part that just irked my chain the most. This one has a little dot in front of it. Really? So, and this is really the I think if we go back here, because I think it's even more apparent if we go and look at, like, if I look at context 7, right? Because they're good about this, right? You scroll down, you can see how every single one is like, oh, if it's in cursor, here's what the mcp.json looks like, and here's where the file is, right? Cursor local, Claude code, open code, like every single, it's like nobody wants to play nice with the other children. and they've all come up with identical schemas, and they've all decided that they won't share the same file. Hey, DCountin, thanks for sharing that library. Have a good night. So I will end my rant on that there, but just be aware that when you yeah, no problem. Just so you know, Society Dog, when you go to add it to an mcp.json file, just be aware that for every agentic tool that you want to use right now, at least at present, there's not great agreement on where the config file where the config for the MCP goes, and so you will often be duplicating it for every tool. Again, it is annoying beyond belief right now. That is my soapbox on that one. I wish people would agree, but everybody wants to be the quote-unquote leader and wants everyone else to follow them, and so right now we have a bunch of different leaders and not a lot of followers. So that is unfortunately the way the game is going. And some of them have started, like, they won't agree on where the file goes. They'll all say that theirs is the right place to put it, but then some of them will start looking at other people's files just to try to, like, get those users to come over to their side. Like, it feels like being back, in primary school and the popularity contest. That's what it feels like. It's annoying. Very, very annoying. So, but yeah, so there is all of that. Maybe what we should do is we should actually do some more AI MCP stuff. I don't know. I go back and forth on whether I think that's a good idea or not. Because on one hand, it's interesting and useful, but on the other hand, I also feel like it's overhyped. So it goes back and forth that way. Sorry, the Intelitech YouTube just started playing, and I'm like, I hear my coworker. I want to plug one more guy. As soon as I find the link, I am going to find it and I am going to post it. Dan, where did you put your link? It's DAO codes. Why can I not find him? There it is. There it is. Okay. Put that one in there. So if you're looking for someone else to follow, Dan is one of my colleagues. He is the one giving that MCP server user group talk on March 3rd. So if you find it interesting, again, he's got a whole bunch of stuff in there. He's been posting a lot of shorts with, like, various tips and tricks of what he's been doing. My opinion, he's been doing a great job. So if you'd like to go support him, he could absolutely use it. I think he deserves it. He's been putting out some good content. Plus, he needs to get higher so that he can set his own URL, which would be cool. He got a follow. Excellent. Thank you, Society Dog. But yeah, like I said, he's been going through, and he'll be the one doing the user group. So, a very smart guy. Very smart guy. Okay. I think I may call it then, at least for tonight. That gets me a good chunk of the way through on my template. Now that I've got it building and going, I just need to get the rest of the stuff updated. And then I think I'm going to start trying to build that app for my wife. We might stream that too. It might be interesting. I don't know. I got to get it going and see. Because there's a handful of interesting bits that she wants around, like SMS messaging and that kind of thing. So it's like, oh boy, okay, that'll be fun. We'll see if I can make it work. I got to investigate different people's free tier, Twilio, ACS, etc. I actually know one of the Twilio engineers, so I may pick his brain, see what he suggests. I'm gonna suspect he says Twilio. So, but with that, I will tell everybody thank you for coming and hanging out. Happy coding. Again, no stream next week. I'll be on an airplane, which means it's hard to stream from an airplane. So that will be difficult for me, but back in 2 weeks, March, whatever day that is, 5th for me. Depending on your time zones, because I stream so late, that could be March 6th for you. So if you think it is Friday morning, it will be the 6th for you. If you think I start my streams on Thursday night, it will be the 5th. So as always, happy coding. See y'all next time.